Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Just like everybody else, we are live today at Bridgestone Arena where the Nashville Predators take on the Dallas Stars tonight. That's right, tonight, right here, the opening night of the NHL season for the Predators right here at Bridgestone Arena against the Dallas Stars tonight at 7 o'clock, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Because the only place that I can guarantee you that you will be able to get Predators hockey this season every single time you go looking for it is 102.5 The Game. And our app, the Game Nashville app, has all of the game streaming. And so if you want to listen to the game, you can listen, go to theGameNashville.com. If you're like, where is the hockey game? Because tonight it's ESPN Plus. And we'll get to ESPN Plus here at some point today. Tonight is ESPN Plus. And I heard Vingan say this on the way out. Ian, I thought this was so disingenuous, not on Vingan's part, but kind of on the NHL's part. They said, tonight's a nationally televised game on ESPN Plus.
Hey, it's national.
No, it's not.
It's global.
What? What? No. By the way, all the games are on ESPN Plus. We'll get the ESPN Plus. I got to stick up my rear end about that. But I'm in a happy mood today. And I'm going to tell you why. Because there's always something about opening day, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey. There's always something where now it's like, all right, season's here. Life is normal again. And I'm not going to get too worked up one way or another if the Predators win tonight and they beat Dallas or something. I mean, hey, it's one hockey game. Scott Wedgwood's going to be in net tonight. Who knows? But it is kind of the time where everybody puts it on the mahogany, where everybody takes their preseason predictions and they say, this is what I expect out of my team. This is what I think is going to happen this year. This is what the Predators hung on to it so much a couple of years ago that when I think they had a disappointing season after they got swept by Colorado in the playoffs, they kept saying nobody thought before the year that we were going to make the playoffs. Nobody, apparently, except Joe Rexrode, thought they were going to make the playoffs. And I've seen all sorts of predictions for the Predators this year, from missing the playoffs, which I think would be crazy, to winning the Central Division and whatnot. And, you know, it's hard to pick against Edmonton right now, as hot as they were at the end of last year and the player that they have on their team. But everybody thinks the Predators are in the mix one way or another in the Central Division. And I'm not sure it matters in hockey in October if you're the favorite with a U or not. But whatever anybody else says, that doesn't change my expectations for the 2024-2025 season. And my expectation, ever since the Predators were aggressive on July 1st and added the three big names, Brady Shea, Jonathan Marchessault, and Steven Stamkos, ever since the Predators put their chips in the middle, my expectation has been the same. Make the second round of the playoffs. Because I think I've been doing this long enough that I know that once you make it to the second round of the playoffs in the NHL, anything is possible. And I'm willing to accept if they get to the second round of the playoffs and they lose in 6 games because they didn't play their best, puck didn't bounce their way, another team they played got hot, maybe they run into in the second round of the playoffs one way or another because either they're not as good as we thought they were going to be or the Predators aren't as good as we thought. You run into a McDavid in the second round of the playoffs, which is not likely, but is possible. You're toast. Some of these places like Toronto and Edmonton and Boston and these other places, they think getting to the second round is like a bad thing. We should have gone further in the playoffs this year. This has been my 12th year. First year I ever was covering hockey was 2013, that half season. After the lockout, I covered the Boston Bruins when I worked at WKXL in New Hampshire. That team made it to the Stanley Cup final. I have covered 2 teams that have made it to the Stanley Cup final. I have covered a President's Trophy team. I have covered numerous coaches, star players, big moments, controversies. I'm not going to say I've seen it all because, again, It's hard to see it all, but I've seen a lot. Enough to know that I think the only expectation anybody can fairly have going into a season is the second round of the playoffs. Because once you get to the second round of the playoffs, they don't reseed. And if you're the second team in the division, now you're playing the first team in the division. And maybe the first team in the division is the best team. You might be the second best team. You're playing the best team in the second round. It's just how concocted the NHL is. And the margins in this sport are so razor thin at times. Goalie gets hot here. Guy gets injured there. Bad call here leads to a power play. And so again, I'm not going to sit here and say cup or bust because I don't think that's realistic. So I want to be fair when it comes to my expectations this season. And I expect the Predators to have a good season. I expect the Predators to be in the playoffs pretty much the entire year. Like, I don't expect us in January to be sitting there saying, well, they are one spot point clear of a playoffs. But no, I expect that by U.S. Thanksgiving, which is usually kind of the line of demarcation between pretenders and contenders, I expect the Predators to be in the mix firmly. And I expect the Predators to finish top 3 in the division. First, second, third. I mean, again, this team they're playing tonight, Dallas, people think they may win the cup. And they might. Colorado still has Nathan MacKinnon. Now, Colorado's got some problems. But Colorado still has Nathan MacKinnon. Winnipeg last year had a great season out of nowhere. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and say, I expect the President's Trophy. I expect a cup. I expect that. That's not how it works. I think you can expect a cup if you have a great team, and the Predators have a very good team. I wouldn't say they have a great team. But I think you can expect a cup over a number of seasons. But I don't think you can actually expect a cup in an individual season because, again, this sport is fickle. And it is, of all the socialist government sports, it is the most conservative. Like, it is the most. When it comes to the cap, it's the realest. There's no adding void years to a contract. There's no soft cap in baseball with the luxury tax. There's no bird rights or mid-level exceptions like the NBA. And again, if you want a great player in hockey, you usually have to draft it, and you usually have to draft it first, second, or third. So, to me, this is the sport where, again, the margins are tiny. So you can't say, oh, I expect a Western Conference final. You don't even know. They may draw the best team in the league in the second round. Edmonton may, knock on wood, because I don't want to root for anybody to get hurt. McDavid may get hurt, miss 2/3 of the season. All of a sudden, Edmonton makes it as a wild card. And now, because you win the Central Division, you get Edmonton. Those things are all possible. So again, I am putting my expectations for this year at the second round of the playoffs, which would be the first time that this team makes the second round of the playoffs since 2018, which also happens to be the last time the Predators were actually a Stanley Cup contender. I expect the Predators to have 2 lines that can score. I expect the Predators to have 2 pairs on defense that can actually play. And I expect the Predators to have elite goaltending after the first month of the season, because we all know UC Saros is a slow starter. So that's a long-winded way of saying I'm excited. I'm excited for the start of the season because I think this team can compete. And I expect this team to compete. Years ago, we launched the Jared and the GM program in 2016. God, that's so long ago, but it doesn't feel like it. And Jeff Kolb, who works at our office. You guys know Jeff Kolb. If you know him, you know Jeff Kolb's kind of a stay out of harm's way guy. He don't like to cause problems. I didn't know Kolb when he was a young guy. My gut is that he probably caused problems when he was younger. So now he's like he ain't trying to cause no problems. So we made these huge, we started the Jared and the GM show. We were so excited about it. And I said to Kolb one day, I said, Jeff, what do you think of this? You know, he's been in all these meetings, but he hasn't said, oh, I think this is going to be a great show, or, oh, I think this is going to be. And he looked at me and he goes, I feel like a team that's gearing up to try to go win the Super Bowl. And that's when I heard that, I was like, that's right. That's what this Jared of the GM show, this is what we're going to try to be. So when it comes to the start of the season tonight in the Predators, and it's like, okay, what's this team going to be? What do we think? What do we want? What do we hope? What do we expect? I mean, I'm expecting a hockey team that's gearing up to try to go win the cup. I know they're not going to be the favorite, and they shouldn't be the favorite. I know that they've got question marks on their team, but everybody has question marks on their team. Florida has question marks on their team. But I think they've got as good of a shot as anybody else. They should be elite on the power play with the coach they have and the players they brought in. They should be elite on the penalty kill with the goaltender they've got and the defensive pairings they should have. They got the right GM, the right coach. I think they got as good of a shot as anybody else. 615-737-1025. That's how we're starting today. 615-737-1025 here on opening night as the Predators get set to take on the Dallas Stars. Now, there is, for what I expect to be a big season, there is one kind of disappointing element, I think, to opening night. But the story that follows it for the season is going to be a big deal around here. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and company live from Bridgestone Arena. Again, the Predators tonight open up against Dallas right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
What's Saros' status for tonight?
We'll see this morning. We'll get a skate and see how he's doing. Obviously with Juice, he's as competitive as anybody. He's going to try to be out there, so we hope to see him.
Andrew Brunette this morning. How about that, Ian? Paul Kaharski asking a hockey question.
Big J journalism from PK there.
What's going on here? Paul Kaharski asking questions about the hockey team and asking a very good one about UC Saros. Apparently UC Saros day to day and all the indications. Ian, is it official that Saros is out for tonight yet?
No.
Okay, so it's not official, and you heard Brunette this morning on with the morning show, and he said, he's going to try to give it a go tonight. We shall see. I mean, I got a pretty good feeling that when Barry Trotz sits down with us at 5 o'clock today, Barry Trotz probably going to tell Saros ain't playing. And it's a bummer only because it's the first game of the year, and it's kind of like, opening day in baseball. Who's getting the ball on opening day? It's always your ace pitcher. You always want to see the number one goaltender go out there again on opening day. But I'm not sure I really care about this. Scott Woodward's going to play tonight, and then who knows if Scott Woodward's any good or not. And, Kevin Lankinen, he sat out there in free agency like a vegetable out in the grocery store that nobody picked, just rotting away. He was a pretty good backup goaltender. We'll see Scott Wedgwood. But, again, that is, again, micro. And we're here talking macro today. Let me say this about Saros. This is a pay-what-you-owe season. Because he is a very polarizing figure with this fan base. He is not a very polarizing figure with the organization. I don't think there's any reservation between Barry Trotz, Andrew Brunette, anybody, about whether or not the players, whether or not Saros is the man. And I got to tell you, I'm not convinced he is. I mean, look, the 774 that he's got on his new contract is better than Jeremy Swayman in Boston. Did you see how much money Jeremy Swayman signed for?
Over 8.25, I believe.
8.25. And I think he's an average goalie. Like, he's good, but he's like any of these other guys. If they get hot,
not very proven either. Yeah.
Yeah. If they get hot, then they can be the man. And if they're not, then they're not. Now, I guess I didn't see the Amazon documentary, but apparently Swayman in there was talking about all the things the Bruins used against him in arbitration. And one was that he didn't win in the playoffs. And he was like, well, we beat Toronto in 7 games this year. Check. And it's like, well, he did win a playoff series.
Yeah, and he got the 8 years.
And
he got the 8 years. So that's long.
Again, 8.25. And I do think that Saros might be the better goaltender than Swayman. So again, the deal's not a bad deal, but it was the commitment of the deal. I wasn't ready to make that. I wasn't ready to make that commitment to UC Saros. But the team thinks higher of him than I do. I knew when they signed him to a contract, and I heard the way I was told was, hey, the trade protection is pretty tight early on, but then it opens up towards the end. And the impression I got was, it's probably tight for about 3 or 4 years. Now, it's tight for 7 of 8 years. It's like, okay, well, the Askarov kid, it's not. Saros is the guy. The Predators were ready to say after last year, Saros is our guy, and I wasn't ready to say it. They think he is a legit franchise ace. The same way Pekka Rinne was a legit franchise ace. The same way the New York Rangers, for instance, look at Shesterkin. Like, they think they can win any game, anytime, because they've got Shesterkin in net. And there may be something to that. Well, here's the thing about Saros. The team may be all in. The team may think he is Pekka Rinne. I don't. Not yet. I was disappointed in the Vancouver series that he didn't play better. And it is a reality. Whether you like it or not, it is a fact that UC Saros has never won a playoff series. Now, we can make arguments that the team wasn't good enough. And there is probably some logic to that. But Pekka Rinne stole a series when the team wasn't good enough in 2011. So you can't tell me like, hey, well, it's all the team's fault. Again, if he's a league average goalie, I can go get a league average goalie. But again, they think he's elite. Willie and Chris Mason, and again, anybody who draws a paycheck from the Predators. Now, I don't think this is like the Titans where everybody says Will Levis is good, even though, again, we all watch Will Levis on Sundays. I really think that the Predators believe this. And they might be right. Like, I'm open to the idea that Saros is a franchise ace, and when given the opportunity with a Stamkos on his team and with a Marchessault on his team and with Brady Shea in front of him, and that given the chance, he will operate like it. It's possible, but I haven't seen it yet. So it's hard for me to get excited about it when, again, I haven't seen it. The point I'm making here is the fan base, I am convinced, is not sold. The fan base was 50-50. We took your calls. We took your texts. I mean, half the radio station. It was a civil war this offseason at 1025 the game. Jared Stillman, Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Caroline Fenton versus Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Ian Safar. Those three believed. Everybody else, which again takes me back to reality. Saros isn't going anywhere. So it would be disingenuous for me to get up here and say, well, this is a prove-it year for UC Saros, or next year he's getting paid $7.74 million and has a full no move. And it's going to be that way for 6 years after that. So you're committed to him for 8 years. I'm just going to tell you this right now. If Saros doesn't deliver this year, it's going to get loud. And it's going to be, this is, Barry Trotz. And I love Barry Trotz. I think he's a good GM. But this is kind of the first big move Barry Trotz made, where it's like, hey, if this doesn't work, you have no recourse. If Saros isn't the guy, if Saros continues to lose in the playoffs, for whatever reason it may be, if Saros gives up goals the way he did in Game 4 of the Vancouver series, where I get it, they're pressuring and a guy falls down and they're 6-on-5 and the Predators don't clear the puck, and I think it was Jankowski that just ate it. It doesn't matter. You're the goalie. You have to stop. At some point, it's up to you. And we saw Pecorine steal games and steal series. That's the job now for UC Saros. And again, I keep telling you, I'm unconvinced that he is that. No matter how much Chris Mason tells me, no matter how much Willie tells me, no matter how much the Predators tell me, I am not convinced of it. And I think the fan base feels the same way. I think the fan base likes Saros. I like Saros. But there's a difference between I like you and I'm committing to you for 9 years. And that's essentially what the Predators did. And so the pressure on Saros is not the pressure if you want to keep your job or if you want to get paid. Those are done. The pressure for me is you're going to turn into Kyle Turris if you don't start performing in the playoffs when it matters. And so this is a big year. Again, it doesn't bother me that he's not playing tonight. Again, I'd like to see him out there because I want to see, again, the excitement on July 1st of all the moves they made, and they went out and they got the 3 new guys, and they got Forsberg and Yossi together, and we're going to see that first line together, and Tommy Novak. We're going to see if he's any good playing center this year. Like, I want to, yes. But at the same time, I mean, Saros isn't going to play, so we're not going to get to see all of it? Or we're speculating he won't play? But again, the big picture for the season, it's time for him to show it, or else fans like me are going to be upset with the team that they committed to this guy when, again, we like him, but I don't think we love him enough to commit to him. And I think that's the difference. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We will get to your phones. 615-737-1025 here on the program. If you want to weigh in here on Stillman and Company, get live at Bridgestone Arena where the Predators take on Dallas tonight. By the way, we do have a pair of tickets to give away. We're not giving them away now. Every hour.
That's right. 4 total.
Every hour we got a pair. So now we are going to give them away here at some point very, very soon. Every hour today, we'll give away a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Seattle Kraken on Tuesday, October 15th. So again, if you're not going tonight, but you want to go Tuesday, we're giving away 4 pairs of tickets. Damn, that's a lot of tickets. So be excited about that. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. Tune into 94.9 The Fan this Saturday at 6:45 for our college football game of the week. Vandy and Kentucky, presented by Twin Peaks. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports.
Well, I was extremely impressed with all their new guys. You know, Stammer in particular. You know, he's a Hall of Famer. Scored millions of goals. To come in and to embrace the work that we put into to come in, and they all did. But I think with Stammer, for me particularly, really stood out because here's a guy that's been as decorated as anybody in this league. He's been a captain. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's scored 50 goals umpteen times, and to come in and embrace it and bring it every day. I think that, to me, for any young kid watching and learning the Evangelistas, if this guy comes in and works like that, how can I not? So I think that leadership stood out, and that really stood out to me. Obviously, both Marchie and Brady, they come from organizations that won, and they brought that attitude into the first day of camp, and it's kind of carried through. So I think that's how the buy-in, kind of materialized and began here with our group.
There you go. That was Andrew Brunette earlier today talking about the new guys who will be out there for the Predators as they take on the Dallas Stars. And again, my thing right now, I think they're a legitimate cup contender, and I think if you are a team that can make it to the second round, you can win it. And I expect them to be in the second round this year. And I think a team that they would be taking on, for that first or second spot in the division might be Dallas tonight. 615-737-1025 and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. First, though, let me tell you, the Predators were nice enough to drop by the Relentless Barbecue Sandwich with Chips, which will be at the barbecue stand at 101 and I guess probably throughout the arena. Pulled pork, smoked chicken, and brisket on a toasted 8-inch hoagie. My God, that is something. With house-made aioli, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Aioli, the little cream sauce with a side of house-made chips. And they also have the breakaway burger at the burger stands, an 8-ounce beef patty with cheddar cheese, lettuce, tomato, sliced onions, pickles, sliced bacon with the house-made Pred sauce, which is their version of a Thousand Island dressing. So again, they're going to have the new eats out here. We got new tables out here at Barrel House. I think these came up from the Lexus Lounge. I could be wrong. But these are brand new tables out here. I mean, it's actually very nice. All right, let's go to your phones. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Adam in Portland's been waiting patiently. He's going to kick us off on UC Saros. Thank you for calling, and thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I don't think it's fair to be super critical of UC if he has problems. Just because if you go back to last year, a lot of the shots that he took on were point-blank range. And I know Brady Shea is supposed to be good. I'll have to trust you for it. I've never heard his name before. But even so, man, he's not going to be on the ice for 60 minutes. So the whole point, like, if you added scorers, cool. But, like, Saros is still going to take point-blank range shots because they didn't do a whole lot to upgrade the defense other than one player. So I don't know. I give him a little break and a little slack just because I don't think his defense necessarily got a lot better.
So I disagree with that because I do think the forwards they brought in also play defense.
Yeah, you're talking about Stamkos and Marchessault. You think they're good enough?
Specifically Marchessault.
I don't know, dude.
But, yes.
That's all I'm saying, man. Like I'm looking at it like from the big picture. Yes, Saros is here regardless, but like he's got a built-in excuse because they added offense instead of defense. That's my thing.
So I have two thoughts on that, Adam. Thank you. Number one, I believe that again, all that matters around here is winning. And we've talked about this with quarterbacks, and it's kind of the same with goaltending. If UC Saros allows 3 goals a game, but you only scored 2, people are going to be mad that UC Saros doesn't win. If UC Saros allows 3 goals a game and you win and you score 4, everybody here will say, we got the best goalie in the league. And you know how that works. So I do think by having an elite power play, that is going to benefit Saros. I think the second part of it is I do think Marchessault does upgrade what they do defensively. And so I think that helps. Peter Laviolette told me one time, he's like, everybody makes a big deal about the defenseman on defense. And he's like, and I get it. But the other guys play defense too. Now, Tommy Novak, I'm a little worried about defensively. And I don't know what Stamkos is as a defensive player. I know Marchessault's a very good two-way player. And so I think that'll help a little bit. Here's my problem, though, I guess, when it comes to this idea about like, well, you know what? Now it's not on Saros and it's not on. It's always on the goalie. It's always on the goalie. Unless you're Edmonton. And even then, I mean, Edmonton, Kenny Holland was the general manager in Edmonton. And I don't know Kenny Holland very well, but I have met him. And I think he's a good man. And he obviously did a good job because they got to Game 7 of the Cup final. But they fired him. Well, they didn't renew his contract. Semantics, right? And the reason they didn't renew his contract is because he signed a goalie to a big contract after a half a good season in Toronto. Was his name Jack Campbell, Ian? Was that the goalie that Ken Holland spent all that money on in Edmonton who stinks?
Yes.
Jack Campbell had like a half a signed him to a huge contract, and he stunk. And I think they never really forgave him for that. So he got the boot. So again, I mean, the goalie's always a big part of this. Let's go to, we haven't talked to Mookie in forever. Mookie is up next on UC Saros. Mookie, go ahead.
It has been a little minute. Jared, wanted to say I'm glad to see you still on, man. I've moved, so I was listening to you online, man. But I did want to tell you this.
You're a good man, Mook.
I appreciate your newfound reluctance to jump on Saros like you did another franchise type player in another sport. So it seems like you're using a little measured approach with the pros before you throw in, all your support. So I guess our conversations must have worked.
Mookie, I got to tell you right now, I on occasion do think about you when it comes to Will Levis, because if you don't know, Mookie used to call in every day, because I used to defend Mariota until the cows came home, till they basically were in the AFC title game with Ryan Tannehill. And Mookie never let me forget it. All the time was always about Mariota. And I mean, I'm out on Will Levis, Mookie. Like, I think he stinks, and I think that he's kind of a knucklehead out there, and I'm not sure that that's ever going to change. And I do think about how you were always on me that I would never move off of Marcus and made every excuse in the book for Marcus. Yes. And now I will not accept every excuse in the book that the Titans and everybody else selling on Will Levis.
Exactly. Well, Levis has nothing to do with it because we're in full agreement on Levis. But we had quarterbacks in the league that mirrored a lot of what Mariota did. And you just, because I felt like he was in Tennessee, you made a lot of excuses for him, like you said. But I see this particular time with Saros, you're going to try to make him earn his keep. So maybe some of those conversations helped.
Mookie, you're a good man. Good to talk to you.
All right, bro.
Man, Ian, we haven't talked to Mookie in forever.
It's been a minute.
It's been like 5 years. Some of these guys that call the show every day, and then all of a sudden that we don't hear from them very often, I do wonder, like, hey, are they doing okay? And so I know this is going to sound crazy because most people, again, probably weren't thinking about, man, is Mookie okay? Like, how's he doing? It's good to know that he's doing okay. But let me say this. I was an excuse maker when it came to Mariota. I'm just going to be honest with everybody out there. This show is about telling the truth. And I was an excuse maker. And maybe it was that burned me. Maybe it's my age, my skepticism. I don't know, but I really don't like making excuses. And when it comes to Saros, we've made every excuse. I still have yet to hear a reasonable explanation for why he lost that Arizona bubble series. But again, he's going to have his job no matter what. I'm just saying it's going to be loud around here if he doesn't start winning. And I was a little surprised Adam in Portland, because I think Adam in Portland, who again was like, I'm going to cut Saros some slack. I think he's been pretty hard on Saros over the years, if I'm not mistaken. Chase from White Bluff texts into the text line and says, Jared, I find it very hard to believe that you are convinced of anything. I feel if you were a Chiefs fan, you'd complain Mahomes didn't throw for enough yards in the Super Bowl that he won. So let me say this. A lot of people think that I am inherently negative, and that might be true. I've told TD, I think on the air, maybe off the air, I can't remember, but I've told TD, I think that because I was a kid and watched the Atlanta Braves every year, and with Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and John Smoltz, they'd win every night. They'd win 100 games. And then they'd get beat by some Scarbini Astro team in the division series. And so I just, again, every little detail matters. And it's hard for me to just blindly get on board with anything. But when I was at the Super Bowl, the guy that I used to work for, the guy who owned the station in Louisville that I used to work at, also owns a station in Kansas City. And their table was right next to our table, and we spent a lot of time together. This is a very, very good man, Chad Boger, very good radio man too. And Chad told me one night at the Super Bowl this year, he said, I'm going to go to the game on Sunday, but I've been invited to the Chiefs after party. Each team, win or lose, throws a big after party after the Super Bowl. Like Joe Burrow, after they lost the Super Bowl, was on stage with Kid Cudi, whoever that is. And so he was invited to the Chiefs after party, but he's like, but I'm going out of town, so I'm just going to fly the red eye after the Super Bowl. And I said, you're going to miss out on the after party? He goes, I've already been to 2 of them. It's a lot of fun, or 3 of them, or however many he's been. He's like, it's fun, but I've already done that. And I'm like, really? Like, that's Jason Anderson, who I used to work with in Louisville, now does the midday show out in Kansas City. He was like, yeah, I'm flying back on, I'm flying back on Friday after the show's over to Kansas City. I said, you're not going to the game. You're the biggest Chiefs fan I know. You're not going to the Super Bowl? He's like, nah. So that's a long-winded way of saying that, knowing me, if this were the Chiefs, I don't know how I'd react. I'll say this. The Braves won the World Series in 2021, and they've gotten bounced early in the playoffs the last 3 years, and I'm not that upset about it. The 2 years I was like, the first year I'm like, I'm not going to be mad about anything because they just won the World Series. The next year I was like, well, I think that this time off in baseball, the 6 days off they take's all bull crap anyways. And then this year, their entire team was hurt. So I'm like, you know what? It's fine. I think I'll say this. If the Titans won the Super Bowl, the Preds won the Cup, I do think I'd lose some juice. I think I might lose a couple miles per hour on the fastball if these teams actually won anything around here.
Maybe.
I mean, it's like then you become the dog that caught the car. And I don't know how I'd react. Maybe it'd be like in Boston when I was in Boston, or when I was in New Hampshire, like very early on, I'd listen to the shows they'd have there. And these fans, they lost the AFC title game to the Ravens. And these fans were like, time to get rid of Belichick, and we need to move on to Ryan Mallett and kiss Brady goodbye. And I was like, man, my team's coached by Mike Munchak and has Jake Locker at quarterback. And these guys are like, Belichick. So who knows? 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Plus, they say tonight is a national TV game, but it's not even technically on TV. And I got a bone to pick with that. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 here on our program if you want to weigh in. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. And let me say this. I need to go check out there on the ice. I'll do that. But that Hiller logo is usually right there at the center. They are proud supporters of the Nashville Predators. I know it's right there on the practice jersey because I saw Chris Mason when he had to play goal the other day with a Hiller patch right there on his practice uni. It is spooky season, and everyone's thinking about Halloween. This month, it's all treats and no tricks with my friends at Hiller. During their spooky good fall giveaway, get a free Blackstone griddle, free Solo stove, or Yeti Tundra cooler with select home upgrades. Or enjoy $99 specials like an HVAC tune-up. Visit happyhiller.com for the details. I'm serious about using Hiller. I had them at my home yesterday, got 2 things done, bang, bang, bang. I thought it was perfect. It was awesome. They're so good. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Fish Truck today.
Just excitement. Anytime, you get to the first game of the season, no matter it's your first or your 20th or whatever, it's always exciting. You always get those little butterflies that sometimes are tougher to come by the longer you're in this league, as you know what to expect. But this is always fun. I think this is probably a little more for me under the circumstance, but certainly an exciting day.
Steven Stamkos ahead of his Predators debut tonight. And I have a bone to pick, because if you want to watch the game tonight, you've got to watch the game on ESPN Plus. They'll have a national broadcast crew. I believe Bob Wischusen's calling the game. AJ Malesko is the analyst, the national crew. And so it won't be Willie and Chris tonight, but Willie and Chris, I think, will be back on Saturday. By the way, the Hiller logo is right there in the center. But here's the bone I've got to pick. Number one, the NHL props up ESPN Plus as if this is a nationally televised game. I remember a couple of months ago when the schedule came out and they were like, the Predators have 7 nationally televised games. ESPN Plus, ESPN Plus, ESPN Plus, ESPN Plus, ESPN Plus, ESPN Plus, and TNT. I'm like, no. They have 1 nationally televised game, TNT. When you can turn on the TV and say, tune to TNT, and it will go to the game. That's 1. And so this Fakakta idea that ESPN Plus equals national TV is bullcrap. That is just a bone that drives me crazy. But regardless, the real bone I have to pick is I think it's pretty shameful that the NHL, and again, all these sports do it, so it's not just the NHL. Football's got a playoff game on Peacock. Basketball is going to have every other year a conference final streaming on Amazon. If you want to watch football tonight, you got to watch it on Amazon. But that's a random Thursday night football game. This is your team's home opener, season opener. And I think it's pretty shameful that the NHL would put it on a streamer and take it off of TV. So because I'm upset about this, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret on how to watch the Predators this year. Because a lot of people also don't have Bally Sports. Now, again, I don't do this, and I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm saying you can do this, or I've heard of people doing this.
Okay.
So every single Predators game that'll be on Bally Sports, if you're like me and you've got YouTube TV or you've got Hulu or anything except for the expensive package on Xfinity, which Ian apparently already pays for, but again, Ian's rolling. The expensive package on Xfinity, DirecTV, their streamers, or Fubo, which doesn't have TNT, whatever. If you've got that, you can get Bally Sports. If not, the Preds games, out-of-market games, air on ESPN Plus. And you'll say, but Jared, the Predators are in market, so we're blacked out from watching the Predators on ESPN Plus, which is true. Now, let me tell you a completely independent thought that has absolutely nothing to do with the Predators, ESPN Plus, or watching the games. Ian, if I made myself clear, this is completely independent and has nothing to do with anything that we've just talked about. Think of it like we're going to talk about Todd Downing. We're not, but think about that. If you've got what's called a VPN, you can, you can get them NordVPN, has them, whatever. If you've got a VPN, you can, for security reasons, obviously, mask your location. For instance, you can say, I'm in Phoenix. And that way, the hackers and scammers and everything else can't track your data. Well, that doesn't, again, it's a completely independent thought of anything else. But, again, you can send an internet signal saying, I'm in Phoenix today. And I don't think Phoenix is within the Nashville television market, if I had to guess. Phoenix, Atlanta, Seattle, Chicago, Miami, Houston, etc. And so, while I don't do that, I'm just saying, And I think this whole Bally Sports Ponzi scheme, like the Bally Sports has a deal with the NBA and the NHL, which means their games will be on for one more year. But Bally Sports right now may not exist in a couple of months. They're trying to get rid of all their baseball contracts, except the Atlanta Braves. And I don't think that's going to work. I just think it's so, I'm angry. Like, I'm angry for the fans that here's this big game tonight. And boy, you better have ESPN Plus. If you want to get excited about the season and you want to watch the 3 new guys on the Predators and you want to see, you better have ESPN Plus. You better pay for it. And it's like, and I get it, because ESPN wants people to become, ESPN Plus members. Got it. Makes sense. And at the same time, the NHL wants as much money as it can get for the TV rights, just like all the other sports. So they're saying, okay, hey, you guys get to pick the games, and we can't tell them not to pick the season opener. But it is a season opener. And you're putting it on a streamer? Telling fans that we got to pay more money to watch? Like, at some point, I just wish one person in sports, and I don't know who it's going to be. At one point, there were owners in the NFL in 1992 or whatever year it was, before Fox got the NFC rights, that when Fox offered $400 million to broadcast the NFC, that almost went and took $250 million from CBS. That they almost took $150 million less dollars. Hey, that's unfathomable today. Because the old guard ownership in the NFL thought there was value in being on CBS, as opposed to Fox, which at the time was a fledgling network. Now, ultimately, the money ruled, and the NFL ended up going with Fox, as we all know. But can one person in sports just stand up and say, you know what? We're going to take care of the fans. And I'm not mad at the Predators, by the way, when I say this, because, look, the Predators are dealt the hand they're dealt with Bally Sports and all their problems and the NHL's national TV deal, which technically this isn't a national TV game. But also independently, VPNs mask where your location is for your safety. So just keep that in mind, too. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Here on our program. We do have a lot of phones, a lot of text messages that we didn't get to, but that's okay. Coming up next, a massive red flag about something that was said by the Titans quarterback yesterday. And the why is the big question. The why is explained, but we'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, Bridgestone Arena. Predators tonight against the Dallas Stars. Home opener, Barry Trotz right here, 5 o'clock. Now, I got to throw a flag on myself, Ian. This should be a personal foul, by the way. Personal foul or a 5-yarder? What do we think?
No personal foul.
I was supposed to give away a pair of tickets every hour to the Seattle Kraken game next Tuesday. I forgot to give away a pair of tickets in the last hour. So we're starting off this hour by giving them away right now. Be caller 5-615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see the Predators take on the Seattle Kraken at Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday, October 15th. Good luck there. We'll be giving away another pair this hour. And TD will be with us here at Bridgestone Arena to start off the next hour for the TD Power Hour. So I heard something yesterday out of Will Levis that my antenna went up and it was like, red alert, all hands to battle stations. I mean, well, what are we talking about? Paul Kaharski asked Will Levis, and he said he was going to do this yesterday in the morning show, about what happened to all the wow plays last year. Like, yeah, Levis made some mistakes last year, and Levis wasn't perfect. But for the most part, there were a handful of times last year where we saw Levis make a throw and we thought, damn. And what happened to that? Here's what Levis said.
You made some really elite wow throws last year. Brian talked about those coming in as one of the things that made you an attractive guy to inherit. Seems like fewer of those this year. Where do you think they are?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've had a couple good ones out there, but I feel like at the end of the day, I'm just doing or taking the throws that I have available to me. And I could argue that some of those throws were not necessary last year. And maybe I had an opportunity to make those dangerous throws this year that I haven't. I feel like that's one of the areas I've improved on the most, is just not throwing it into, just team meetings and just cloudy windows. And then I would just say I felt like I was throwing the ball the best that I ever was in my entire career. So as of last week, so it wasn't like an ability thing where I feel like I didn't have it anymore. Just feel like the opportunities haven't presented itself, but I know I got it in me and I know that they'll come.
Red alert, all hands to battle stations. Everybody, did you hear that right there? The quarterback said, I think this is the best I've been throwing the ball. And the wow plays, some of the things I did last year, I didn't need them. It's easier. And as soon as I heard that, I was reminded of something I read this offseason. This was from May. Albert Breer wrote it at Sports Illustrated. It was called Inside the Education of Will Levis. By the way, what did happen to some of the wow plays? Because by my count this year, he's got one. And like Chig catching the touchdown at Chicago was a wow play by Chig. To me, the best throw Levis made was a ball that Calvin Ridley dropped against the Jets. Other than that, there haven't been a whole lot of wow. Did you see that? But I go back to this article that came out in May, where they let Albert Breer in the facility with Levis and Callahan. And I think there was an SI article where Levis against the Falcons had a deep throw last year, and it hit Traylon Burke square in the hands, and he didn't catch it. And Brian Callahan demonized it because he didn't need it. So I'm reading what they wrote in this after hearing Levis say that he doesn't need the deep ball that much or to take those big plays. This is from Albert Breer. Quote, I'd asked Callahan to take me through some of the tape to show why he was so all in on Levis, to the point where the Titans in Callahan's first year and in possession of the 7th pick didn't so much as sniff around on the quarterbacks available high in the draft. The first play he showed was a 1st and 10 at Tennessee's 36 in the first quarter, right after the Titans converted a fake punt with Derrick Henry square behind Levis and tight ends to each side. By the way, I did go back this morning and look at that play from last year. This is one of them, Callahan says, now smiling as if to anticipate the reaction. Some of these play actions, some of these deeper shots, I watched this. This is a stupid effing throw, Levis interjects with a grimace. I didn't have to say it, Callahan responds, but yes, that's the point. On one hand, on this play, the coach saw a 24-year-old make a throw that no more than a couple of dozen of people on the planet could execute. It was a beautiful throw with a guy right in his face, and he threw it 25 yards down the field outside the numbers into double coverage, and it hit Traylon Burks in the hands. And you guys will be shocked to know Traylon Burks did not catch the ball. That's the play they're talking about. So continues, Breer writes, the education of Will Levis. Levis carries out a play action to Henry to his right and drops straight back in the pocket. As he sets up, Atlanta clearly isn't fooled. Nose tackle LaCale London's quickly in Levis's face as he looked to his left. London gets to Levis, knocks him off balance, and Levis somehow wills the ball deep downfield and to his right, just outside corner D. Alford and post safety Richie Grant. It fell incomplete, but it hurt Traylon Burks in the hands. Again, shocked to know that it hit Burks in the hands. Meanwhile, Breer writes, tight end Chigakonkwo was wide open in the opposite flat, releasing late into his route and as the play intended to give Levis an outlet. This was not an advisable throw, nor was it an advisable position to be in, Callahan says. It was like, holy S word, this is not smart. I look at it and I go, God, if Will can just learn that on 1st and 10, just throw the ball right there in the flat, that Chig is in the flat and going to catch the ball and run for 12 yards, and it's going to be 1st and 10 again at the 50. Instead, Will's trusting his arm and his ability. The other part of it, Callahan says, is it's an effing unbelievable throw. You watch it from the end zone. There's a guy in his face. It's horrendous eyes, horrendous progression, guy bearing down on him. He can't step into the throw. The guy's 40 yards down the field, and he just sort of flicks it while he's getting hit and drops the ball right in his hands. It's an incredibly accurate throw for what that was going on. I'm watching this, and I'm like, again, another word you can't say. So what Callahan's saying in this individual play right here, and again, this is the article was the education of Will Levis. What Callahan is saying is, my God, Levis made a great throw right there, and it could have been a big play. But we want you to think about it more, and we want you to be more conservative, and we want you to take the check down, and we want you to... I'm not saying Will Levis is Brett Favre, but I think at his best, Will Levis does have kind of a YOLO mentality. And so when it comes to Will Levis and him saying, like, hey, maybe I didn't need some of those throws last year, he's talking about a ball that he threw 40 yards down the field and hit Traylon Burks in the hands. That was his natural inclination. Brian Callahan saying, I like that you can do that because not a lot of people can do that, but I want you to do this. I don't think you can do that with Will Levis. I think Brian Callahan wants the best of both worlds. An older, more experienced quarterback, I don't know, like Matthew Stafford in his prime when Brian Callahan worked with him, probably had the ability to know when to let it fly, when to trust the instincts and talent and ability, and when we needed to play it safe. I don't know if you guys have watched Will Levis. He can't do that. Will Levis can't think. He's just got to go out and play. It is what it is. And what's happened is, with Levis, you got some of the wow off of the natural instincts and reaction, and you got some of the dumb off of the natural instincts and reaction. What Brian Callahan's trying to do is he's trying to keep the wow but get rid of the dumb. Instead, what's happened is he's gotten rid of the wow and he's keeping the dumb. That's the worst of both worlds. And it reminds me of something Coach Charlie Weiss said to me. I asked him, I said, there's all these young quarterbacks in the league, rookie quarterbacks, second-year quarterbacks. I asked him this summer on my SiriusXM show, I said to Coach Charlie Weiss, I said, what would your advice be? Again, this is the guy that grew Tom Brady. Belichick's a defensive coach. This was the offensive coach. And I said, I go, what would you tell these coaches that are bringing along these young quarterbacks? Like, what advice would you give them? Here's what Charlie Weiss said.
Make sure you do what they do well, not what you want them to do. In other words, you don't make them fit into your offense. You build the offense around what they do well and do a lot of that. So when they come in there, you find out what they're best at and then do a whole hell of a lot of that. And as time goes on, you do more and you do more and you do more. Okay, but find out, first of all, what they're good at. And instead, too many coaches are hard-headed. They bring a guy in and they think that you have a guy that at the quarterback position, they want to teach him the whole playbook. The hell with that. Figure out what they're good at and just do that more. I mean, what's wrong with repeating good stuff? Why do you have to have 9 million different things? Find out what they do well and do a lot of that, and then expand from there. And that is the golden rule to success for any young quarterback.
Bingo. What happened was Brian Callahan thought, I got this God-given ability I can work with in Will Levis. But I can coach him, and I can give him the whole play, and I can tell him what I want him to do on every play, and I can. And if you don't think that Brian Callahan thinks he can do that, first of all, he should be confident, and I want him to be confident. But young coaches are overconfident. And in this case, I think Brian Callahan had a plan in his head. This is what I'm going to teach Will Levis to do. And I can do it the same way they said I can do it at right tackle with PT. But they know better than that now. I kept trying to tell them, they didn't want to listen. And what's happened is, by Brian Callahan thinking he knew what to do with Will Levis, his plan was, again, get out the reckless, embrace the talent, but let's be safe. Instead, what it's done is it has minimized the talent, taken away the good parts, but hasn't really changed the reckless. And the one thing I would say is it'd be a lot easier to stomach some of these Levis mistakes if Levis was countering them with the wow. If Levis has 2 great throws and 1 bad one, we can excuse the 1 bad. The problem is when your entire game now is checking it down and you're excited about completion percentage, well, that's not going to do you a lot of good when you throw a pick 6 against Green Bay and it's like, well, what the hell did you do? Oh, I checked it down to Chig. Congratulations, you lost. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I don't know if my light bulb moment this morning over that, like, I don't know if I presented that well enough through the radio about when I heard what Levis said about maybe I didn't need it and, some of those wow plays. And I'm like, oh my God, this goes back to what they were proud about in May of, we're going to teach you not to do that ball you threw 40 yards down the field that hit Burks in the hands that he didn't catch. Now, let's throw the ball 40 yards down the field, hit Burks in the hands, but this time let's take Burks out. Let's put a $25 million receiver in there, and let's hit him in the hands and catch it. That's what I would prefer. And again, I think this is Brian Callahan, his first year as a head coach, thinking that, hey, I can do this when it is a lot harder than you think. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Now, there is a stat with Levis that is concerning under Brian Callahan. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk Window Nation. I absolutely love Window Nation. Window Nation will take great care of you. I can promise you that. Window Nation came to my home. I had a check ready for them to say, okay, tell me what I need to do to replace my windows. And they said, your windows are good. You do not need to replace your windows. I said, I don't need to replace my windows. They said, no, you don't. Now, I've since moved. I've moved into an older house, bigger house, but older house. And thus, there may be some older windows in there. And that would require a call to Window Nation. And I'm not afraid to do it because I know I can trust them. And right now, if you buy 2 windows, you'll get 2 free. Plus, you'll pay nothing for 24 months. But hurry up because the sale ends October 31st. Again, buy 2 windows, you'll get 2 windows for free. And you pay nothing for 24 months. That's Window Nation. Again, I seriously, give them a try. If you're ready to update those windows, if you're ready to get the energy efficient ones that keep the warm air in or the cool air if it's the summer, Window Nation. Schedule an in-home estimate by calling 866-90Nation or by visiting windownation.com. That's 866-90Nation, windownation.com.
The thing that had a lot of people excited about Will last year, administratively, coaching-wise here, were the occasional brilliant throws.
No doubt.
And that's, I guess you talked about some of those on tape when you arrived.
Yep.
Outside of maybe the 40-yard touchdown against the Jets that he snuck between two defenders, how many of those kinds of throws do you feel like he's made this season?
Probably. I mean, again, small sample size too, but I think he made a couple. I think he made a few more over the course of the season last year, and we'll keep trying to find places for him to make those. You know, I thought that the throw that got intercepted against the Jets was an aggressive throw that you'd like to. Had you come down with it, you feel pretty good about. He made a really nice throw to Calvin on a bench route in that game too, late in the game. Beautiful timing and anticipation, accuracy. And he's thrown a couple other balls that may not be as exciting as some, but are still really, really good throws. So, yeah, I mean, we're still trying to find ways to unlock that too, try to get more balls down the field, a little more explosive when we can. But, yeah, those are the things that makes Will an exciting player, and got to keep finding ways to let him do that.
That was Brian Callahan yesterday saying a lot, but I'm guessing that most of what he said probably went in one ear and out the other, because this is a production league. So when Brian Callahan's like, well, you know, he had a great bench route over to Calvin, which he threw to the sideline. It was a great throw. And it was again, when you have to tell us that he's had wow plays, then he's not having wow plays. Again, when it comes to, let's use Diego Pavia as an example here. Ian, is it hard to find Diego Pavia with some wow plays for Vanderbilt?
Not this past game.
I mean, when it's 4th and 1 and he throws the ball 38 yards down the field and guy catches it right in the hand, I'd say it's pretty wow play. You don't have to do that. Like Mahomes has wow plays. And last year, Levis had some wow plays. Now, here is an alarming stat that, again, hearing Levis say, you know, maybe sometimes last year I threw passes, some of those wow plays that I didn't need to, and I could have, you know, checked it down to Chigaconko, whatever. Here's an alarming stat. It's the yards per attempt stat. It's very important to personnel people in the NFL, and it's also a very important Vegas stat. Yards per attempt for Will Levis, the line of demarcation when it comes to yards per attempt for a quarterback, as in good or bad. It's like we talk about a 900 save percentage for a goalie. If you're a goalie in hockey and you've got an 8, 9, 7 save percentage, you suck. It's the line of demarcation. It's the Mendoza line. The number for yards per attempt is 7. That's the magic number. This year, last year, yards per attempt without Calvin Ridley, 7.1. Again, acceptable. This year, yards per attempt with Calvin Ridley on his team, 6.2. So he is throwing the ball. Yards per attempt is 1 yard shorter, and they just paid a guy $25 million to be this team's number one receiver. And not only that, it's a $25 million guy who his number one thing is running down the field. He's the fastest receiver you've got. You didn't have a guy that's as fast as he was last year. And I looked at all the Brian Callahan quarterbacks. Again, Levis is 6.2 yards per attempt. Peyton Manning in 2015, when Callahan was a quote-unquote offensive assistant. Peyton Manning, 6.8. Now, remember, at that point, Peyton Manning couldn't even feel his fingertips anymore, and he was still 6.8. He was 7.7 for his career, but 6.8. Stafford in 2016, 7.3. Stafford in 2017, 7.9. Derek Carr in 2018, 7.3. Andy Dalton in 2019, the year that the Bengals got the number one pick, 6.6. So Andy Dalton, quarterbacking the worst team in the NFL in 2019, still averaged more yards per attempt than Will Levis. Joe Burrow is a rookie, 6.7. Joe Burrow, his second year, led the NFL at 8.9 yards per attempt. And do you want to know what I assume is the number one reason that Joe Burrow led the NFL in yards per attempt his second year, but not his first year? Because he had Jamar Chase. Again, the Titans have gone out, regardless of how good Ridley is. I think Ridley's a number 2 who you're paying like a number 1, because if you want to get a receiver in free agency, You're going to have to pay them like a number one receiver, even if they're not a number one receiver. But again, Ridley should add to the yards per attempt, not take away. And it goes back to my initial theory, and I said this last week in Jared versus Joe, and I got crucified for it. But I think Brian Callahan had an idea for what he wanted to do with Will Levis before he even spent time with Will Levis. And that is what I would call an inexperienced person's no-no. You know, the show that I love, I even referenced it in the first hour today, the Felger and Mass program in Boston. It's a crass radio show, but it's hilarious. They are tough on the Patriots, the Bruins, the Red Sox, the Celtics. I still listen to that show, and I don't care about those teams. Those guys are rough. You think I'm bad, listen to them. And I always had a dream of doing a show like that. And I wanted Jared and the GM to be that way. But it didn't take me long to realize that with the GM, he had a certain level of expertise, but also a certain level of respect for the football players and the football coaches. And he wasn't going to chuck people under the bus the way that those two guys who, again, they used to be writers and now they're, talk show hosts. They don't have the same kind of expertise that Floyd had, and they don't have the same kind of relationships and, hey, I'm going to treat these guys differently kind of vibe. And so instead of expecting Floyd to get on here and bash the coach and bash the quarterback and bash the GM and bash, instead of that, we were finding ways to use what he was good at. That's why we used to have the Floyd Reese Draft Academy during the offseason in the lead up to the draft, where he would talk about how they go about putting together the draft board one day, or how they go about scouting different players, or what they do at the Senior Bowl, or how they make a trade during the draft, because people wanted to know, and he knew. The amount of things I'd love to know right now they haven't seen with it. But again, that's because very early on, I had an idea for what I wanted our show to be, but then I realized we can't emulate that show because he's not like those guys, but he brings something else to the table. My guess is Brian Callahan, again, a young coach, said, this is what I'm going to do with Levis before really, truly understanding what Levis was about. That's a problem. And again, I keep circling back to the right tackle position because I think what happened to the Titans, now they're trying Leroy Watson out there. Leroy Watson. I'm going to do that every time, by the way. But now they're trying Leroy Watson out at right tackle. He and Nicholas Pete Frere, a.k.a. PT, are battling it out at right tackle. So a guy who wasn't good enough to make the team 6 weeks ago is now battling it out for right tackle. As the old man would say, at that point, you just swap and spit. And so it's not going to get any better at right tackle. But the problem is I kept saying from the day, go get a right tackle. Go get a right tackle. And they kept saying, we think PT and Duncan can do it. And I'm like, you can think it till the cows come home, but they can't do it. But they probably thought they could because, again, they're inexperienced. So the expectation for what they thought they could do is not the same of what they actually could do. I used to have all these grand ideas. We could do this. We should do that. We should. Now I'm very measured. Now I'm like, that sounds like a good idea, but is it actually feasible to do? And I think that's the experience that Brian Callahan's getting here. And that's why Levis has essentially regressed in spite of the fact that they've gone out and gotten him a number one receiver. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program if you guys want to weigh in. And there's also another thing that maybe has stymied Will Levis's, I want to say ascent, but if I say ascent, that means that he had to have been on that path or that he was likely to have been on that path, which stymied the potential for him to be good. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. This week's Nashville's best deal is Fog Street Lawn Club. Get half off a $30 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals and dive into the ultimate rooftop experience. British lawn bowling, scrumptious bites, and premier soccer pub vibes all in one place. Get half off a $30 gift card to Fog Street Lawn Club now while supplies last.
Did you see Jordan Love's interception? And seeing that, did that make you not beat up on yourself so much?
There's a couple examples that coaches told me that have made me feel a little bit better about myself. I think he said Tom Brady in the AFC Championship threw an identical pick to what I did to Von Miller, to a dropping defensive end. Like, those things happen, like things where the vision's not there, someone's in front of you, you don't really see what's going on. And then again, he sent me a clip last night of Burrow trying to throw it away like this on the sideline and it getting picked in his rookie year or something. And he's like, yeah, he turned out to be pretty good. So that was just funny to see those things and knowing it happens to everybody.
There you go. Hey, all these bad interceptions I throw, they showed me one that Tom Brady threw years ago in an AFC title game where Von Miller was dropping. Brady threw the ball, it hit Von Miller right in the hands. Yeah, I mean, hey, it happens. The one I threw against Green Bay, oh, here's one Joe Burrow just threw. Jordan Love threw one last week. Hey, similar to Will Levis. It's hey, you know what the difference is, though, between the two? Levis does it every week. I've watched enough Tom Brady football to know that Tom Brady can get away with making a mistake because he'll make up for it later. You can't say that about Will Levis. By the way, in that AFC title game, I believe that Levis is referencing, Brady led the Patriots back, and they would have tied the game and gone to overtime if Steven Gostkowski had not missed an extra point. So, again, there's a difference. And I'm getting a little tired of the coddling. And when it's like, hey, coach sent me a clip the other day of Joe Burrow throwing an interception, and he said Joe Burrow turned out pretty well. It's like, that kind of sounds like coddling. Like I've said, when it comes to Will Levis, clean slate with a full plate here. So forget about all the past stuff. And even though I'm kind of out on him, let's see, starting now with the bye, with a month under his belt, let's see what happens. But don't go coddling and say, oh, no, all these interceptions are okay. No, they are not okay. There's also another thing that I do wonder when it comes to the regression of Will Levis, if that's the word we want to use, regression. I do wonder how much Derrick Henry not being here has aided in that regression. No matter what you thought of Derrick Henry, and a lot of you thought, we don't need Derrick Henry. Trust me, I took your calls. A lot of you guys thought Derrick Henry was washed. But regardless of what you think of Derrick Henry, every single person in the NFL considered Derrick Henry a threat when they would play the Titans, and they treated him as such. I can promise you right now, on the Wednesday morning meetings, when it came to the Titans, and they're sitting there saying, all right, boys, we got Tennessee. On offense, what we're going to have to worry about is 22. Remember when Mike Tomlin on Thursday Night Football was talking about the Titans ahead of the game, and he talked about how Derrick Henry, you give him the ball, he can kill you, he can bruise you, he can this, he can that, he can that. DeAndre Hopkins, he's still the same old D-Hop. He goes out there, makes these great catches. He's a threat at all times. We got to worry about DeAndre. The other guys they have on their team, they're good too. Okonkwo. And that was the only one he mentioned. Okonkwo. So now Derrick Henry's not there. And Tony Pollard's a good player. But Tony Pollard ain't Derrick Henry. Sorry. I mean, for crying out loud, Derrick Henry single-handedly kept Jacksonville out of the playoffs last year by rushing for 153 yards with the worst offensive line in the league in front of him. So maybe when I kept saying last year, they're going to need to re-sign Derrick Henry. Well, but they want to throw the ball, the backs that catch the ball, and they want to get more playing time for Tajay Spears. And yeah, that sounds good, but they're not Derrick Henry. In fact, it's hilarious to me. Ian, did you notice this in the clips I sent you? The one from last year I sent you on this very day?
Yes, I did. I thought maybe you labeled the clip wrong because it was this exact same date, just a year off.
So I did the same thing yesterday with a clip we didn't play, and I didn't even listen to it, but I saw in the title it was Mike Vrabel tells Teresa Walker that he is, and it's a word. And he replied with a word that starts with S and ends with T.
Why?
Well, I was saying, like, TY together makes T,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Sure. Sorry, I made that confusing.
But no, you're right. You're right. That word. There was another one today that I found that was apparently a cut from a year ago. Didn't even listen to it, just sent it in the email to Ian. This is what people were thinking last year. Ian, do you have this cut for me?
Yes, I believe I do. Yeah.
Play it. It's from our own Willie Donick.
Two things we always talk about with the stats, right? There's the eye test, and then there's the analytics. And how do the two meet? Then there's the analytics, which suggests that Derrick Henry doesn't break as many tackles as he once did. There's this new stat that people are developing called expected yards per attempt, right? They look at the play. I don't know how they come up with it, honestly, but it's like, should you get a good running back will get more than expected. An average running back will get exactly what's expected, and then people will get below. Derrick Henry.
How do you even calculate that?
I don't know. Derrick Henry does not grade nearly as well in these categories as he did 3-4 years ago. Tajay Spears grades really well in these things.
Okay. I don't know what the analytic.com says. My guess is ever since Derrick went to Baltimore and they got a better offensive line, all of a sudden the analytic numbers say Derrick's better too. But everybody, including the administration of this football team, convinced themselves Derrick Henry was no good. And I think it is hurting the young quarterback. If there was ever a hope for him, it's hurting the young quarterback that Derrick Henry's not there anymore. I think it is hurting him. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Somebody text in, Mo did, and said, what are your thoughts on Callahan sending Levis clips of Joe Burrow and Tom Brady throwing interceptions and telling him it's normal? I'm guessing that was before we started the segment, but I got one word for that. Coddling. That's what I think it is. 615-737-1025 here on our program if you want to weigh in. And there is a headline that is out there that a lot of people are like, oh, and they're almost enjoying it. And I got to tell you, don't you have something better to worry about? We'll get to that coming up next. Hey, tune into 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU football. The Blue Raiders will take on Louisiana Tech on the road. Pregame starts at 5:30. Kickoff is at 7. Coverage of MTSU football on 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville is presented by Sloan's Motorcade and ATV. And let's give away a pair of tickets. That's right, the second pair this hour to see the Predators taking on the Seattle Kraken at Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you are headed to Tuesday night's game. Good luck. We'll be giving away a pair in the 4 o'clock hour and the 5 o'clock hour at Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, we are live at Bridgestone Arena. Be sure to join us for the award-winning pregame show on Sunday, live at John Bon Jovi's, JBJ's, downtown on Broadway. Me, Chris Sanders, Derek Mason, ahead of the Titans and the Colts starting at 9:30, the award-winning pregame show. And remember, it's not going to be like when the Packers were here with all the fans they had, but it might be like the Jets. Colts will bring some fans. But they opened JBJ's earlier than they opened Hank's because they want visiting fans to go to Hank's. They want Titan fans at JBJ, so we hope to see all the Titan fans out there. The award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sun Deck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Okay, so I guess it was announced today. I don't know. I mean, I've been busy with my own problems with this team, as opposed to, these other teams around the league. So it was announced today that the New York Jets have decided to take the play calling away from Nathaniel Hackett, and they're going to give it to his assistant, Todd Downing. And today people were tweeting me being like, what do you think of Todd Downing calling the plays for the Jets? And somebody in the last hour when we were talking Predators texted in and said, talk about the Todd Downing calling the plays for the Jets. And when I got here to Barrel House at Bridgestone Arena, Adam Vingan on the Midday Show was like, I got something Jared Stillman will care about. Todd Downing is calling plays for the Jets. Why do I give a rat's ass about Todd Downing calling plays for the Jets? Why do I care about that? I mean, I guess good for Todd Downing. Maybe if they score some points, he'll refrain from getting behind the wheel of the car after doing ayahuasca with Aaron on the way home. Just be something I would advise. But again, as far as I don't know what to make of this. There's no juice with Todd Downing taking over the Jets. The Jets suck, Todd Downing sucks, and the Titans suck. So, I mean, yay, congratulations. In fact, the guy that came in here and beat you calling the plays, you couldn't get a turnover on them, and they scored on their last drive at the end of the game, and you didn't. The guy that came in here and beat you isn't good enough to call their plays. In fact, they think Todd Downing might be better off calling their plays. So you lost to a guy who's not good enough to call the plays, and again, they'd rather have Todd Downing call them. Guys, the things I care about when people leave here are the guys who matter. The guys who, I'm not going to lose sleep. Even if Todd Downing does well with the Jets, which he's not going to. But even if Todd Downing does well with the Jets, so he was terrible with the Titans. It was a terrible decision by Mike Vrabel to retain him after 2021. He was terrible in 2022. He was never going to keep his job after the DUI, especially once that video got released. It was never going to happen, even if he was good at calling the plays, and he wasn't. But Todd Downing's not the reason this team went in the toilet. The guys I care about are the guys that you think are the reason this team's going down in the toilet, and they'll get an opportunity to show it somewhere else. Mike Vrabel will be a head coach in the NFL next season. In fact, Mike Vrabel might be the Jets coach next season. And if they hire Mike Vrabel, then I'll care. Because the Titans thought Mike Vrabel was the problem. Now, I wanted to get rid of Mike Vrabel too. And I think Vrabel will win where he goes next. And when he does win, I will say, hey, this is the deal with Vrabel. He's got a shelf life. And then eventually he'll make everybody there mad. Derrick Henry. Again, you guys wanted to trade him last year. You guys thought he was washed. You guys thought he couldn't play. Now he's leading the league in rushing, and he's number one in yards per game. Not just yards. The Ravens are number one in total offense and number one in running the ball. In fact, I think they run the ball, Ian, if I'm not mistaken, I think they run the ball at like 6.2 yards a crack or something redonkulous.
Said the Ravens?
Yeah. That's what Will Levis is throwing yards per attempt. So I care more about that than I do. Todd Downing. I don't care about the Jets. I don't care about Aaron Rodgers. I don't care about Todd Downing. I don't care about any of that. I did think it was funny. Aaron Rodgers went on the McAfee show yesterday, and Aaron Rodgers said, what did he say on he said that all the rumors that he was part of the reason that Robert Saleh got fired are patently false. And somebody on Twitter said, sorry, Aaron, I did my own research and I have to disagree, which is hilarious, obviously, given the fact that Aaron Rodgers is a conspiracy.
Ravens 6.1.
Oh,
per
my
carry.
God. So the Ravens run the ball. Every attempt the Ravens run the ball is the same as every time the Titans throw the ball.
Derek's at 6 right now. Henry.
Every time Derrick Henry runs the ball, it's the exact same almost as when Will Levis throws the ball. You ever seen somebody rush for 350 yards in a game? The answer is no. That's how sad it is in Titan land and how good things are for Derrick Henry now that he's gone. So celebrating Todd Downing, I mean, come on now. Todd Downing, I'm so happy he's calling the Jets plays. What do I care? What do you care? What do any of us care about Todd Downing? And yet the people that are like, oh my God, this is so great. Joey from Bellevue says, believing in Will Levis the way they do will ultimately cost someone their job. I got a feeling it might cost everybody their job. I'm serious. The hard reset is coming. And I don't know when that's going to be. But every year they change somebody. Change coach, change quarterback, change GM. Every year they change somebody. At some point, the Titans are going to get sick of this, and they're just going to blow it up. And they're going to start over, and they're going to do what they did in 2015, and they're going to be run like a regular organization. They're going to go get somebody to be a GM, and they're going to get somebody to be the coach, and they're going to get somebody to be the quarterback. They're going to do what Washington did. And I don't know when it's going to be, but it is going to happen. They're going to stop with this weird structure of president of football operations. So are you in charge of the IT department or are you in charge of the team? Because those are two totally different things. At some point, that's going to happen. I agree, though, that the Will Levis thing, it's gonna cost somebody their job. And it may or may not be fair, but like that's the reality of the NFL is if you get it wrong at quarterback, like, sorry. Think about the Commanders again. They've gone with the clean sweep, and they've even gotten rid of the owner. But think about the Commanders. New GM, new coach, new quarterback. Where's Ron Rivera? He's on TV. Where's Eric Bieniemy? He can't even get a job. Where's Sam Howell? He's backing up Geno Smith. That is the reality when you commit to somebody and they end up being the wrong guy. Everybody gets it at some point. So, when it comes to the Titans, I mean, I would agree. I mean, they've got two choices here, right? Get better or get better. Justin says all the change doesn't give us to see who really is the problem. I want them to do what you're talking about because this seems to be the best formula to run an NFL team from the ground up. See, that's what bothers me so much when I said last year, I was like, it's time to just clean house. It's time to start over, and it's time to go. And people were like, you can't fire. Nobody cared that I said fire the coach and the GM. It was, you can't fire a GM after 1 year. I'm like, I'm just trying to bring balance back to the organization. And I'm not going to promote the guy because he didn't do a job worth promoting. Drafted a guard. And it sounds like Brinker got the promotion of the group. And, well, Derrick Henry's running the ball for just as much as you're throwing the ball, which is a serious problem. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. TD will join us coming up next here on the program. We are live at Bridgestone Arena for the TD Power Hour, and then Barry Trotz at 5 o'clock. So we are loaded leading into the Preds season opener tonight at 7 o'clock right here at Bridgestone Arena, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. That's coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there, and this is very important for me to tell all the fine folks to tune in to Vandy football. That's right. Vandy football will be on 94.9 The Fan this Saturday at 6:45. That's Vandy football this Saturday on 94.9 The Fan. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios here on a Predators game day, Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators are getting set to take on the Dallas Stars tonight at 7 o'clock. We're excited about that. Barry Trotz joins us in 1 hour here at the desk, where we will start our weekly interviews with Barry Trotz. TD will join us here live from the arena momentarily, but I have been promising throughout the course of the show, every hour we're giving away a pair of tickets for the Preds and the Kraken on Tuesday night. Ian, let's go ahead and do that for this hour now.
Cool.
Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see the Predators taking on the Seattle Kraken Tuesday night at Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday, October 15th. And good luck on that. TD says he's at section 111, but he doesn't see it. And I'm looking currently for TD, and I don't see TD in the concourse. Section 111. That's where we are now. And I don't see TD. So we'll have to get that figured out. TD's on his way in here. And the number one question I want to ask TD about is the quarterback. And I have made an agreement. Again, I don't know how many people would accept this or wouldn't expect this, but I made an agreement when it came to the quarterback that, look, Titans aren't going to change the quarterback, and I don't necessarily want the Titans to change the quarterback because I'm not sure I see the upside in going with the other quarterback. But the question I would ask when it comes to the Titans and when it comes to the quarterback and everything else is that now can we start calling a spade a spade? And it concerns me that, and I get like what Brian Callahan says in the press conferences, but it concerns me that he would say, you know, on one hand, you know, like, oh, hey, we're all in and whatever. That doesn't bother me. But when it comes to the whole idea of, you know, well, Tom Brady threw this interception or Joe Burrow threw that interception, that's great. But again, this happens with Levis every week. And so that's kind of the concern when it comes to the quarterback position and the Titans. And so, again, all I'm saying is let's give it a clean slate. But starting now, like, let's be like a big boy quarterback. TD is here at the arena and joins us now here on the program. The other way. No, the other way. Slide it down the other way. So if you sure? What's up, TD?
What's up? I feel like I'm with Sam Phelan in the movies in that series Survivor, man.
Trying to get through the arena?
Trying to get through the arena.
That's some red tape.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Some red tape. All right, let's start with this. Let's start with the quarterback, TD. I don't expect them to change a quarterback. I wouldn't change a quarterback if I were them, but it is getting a little late when it comes to the quarterback in terms of it's an every week thing. And I mean, at some point it's got to improve.
Yeah, it does have to improve, but I don't know that it's an every week thing. You look at the first couple of errors; those were obviously egregious. There's no excuse for them. But after that, you know, when it goes to the interception last week, it was a bad interception. But that's one of those ones where it happens. I mean, even Tom Brady, your guy, has been picked off in the same way. And I'm not in any way excusing it, but I'm just saying it is something that happens. It's the cost of doing business with a young player. He is, after all, only entering his 13th game. There's a lot more learning that he has to do, and it really comes down to how much can this team afford to go through that learning process with him. That's the big problem. How much can they afford to go through the learning process? It's different from Major League Baseball, where you have a team like my Mets that are, 11 games under 500, end up in the NLCS. There's not a lot of time to turn things around like that. So you are right as far as it getting late, but they have to get it together. So.
Here's the thing, though, on the Levis thing. Like, I understand the idea that Tom Brady throws interceptions and Joe Burrow throws interceptions and they all throw interceptions. But they also, Brady and Burrow and those guys, can throw for 350 and throw 3 touchdowns and kind of make up for a mistake. Right now, Derrick Henry is averaging 6 yards per carry on the ground. Levis is averaging 6.2 yards per pass.
Yeah.
You know, Paul asked the question yesterday, and I think it's pretty good, which is, what happened to the wow stuff? Because it used to be wow with a little boneheadery, and now it's been no wow with more boneheadery.
I tell you what it is, honestly, and this kind of came to the surface for me talking to Bo Hardigree today, the quarterback coach, because I just was asking him about Levis's mindset in general and staying on time. Because if you notice, that offense is on time with Mason Rudolph. He gets to that 3rd step, that 5th step, the ball's out and is where it needs to go. Everything's on schedule. Not the same with Levis. In fact, that's the whole reason why he had to scramble and got hurt on that play. I asked him about that, and he said game manager. So I said, okay, well, when you have a guy like Levis who loves to push it down the field, who loves to take those risks and shoot the ball all over, how do you approach it? You know what he said? It's all about the play calling. So that's really what it boils down to. They're trying to direct him to do what they need him to do through the play calling. That's where the downfield, and there's a time and place when they have those, because those are dialed in. But for the most part, and remember what Callahan said about high completion percentage, right?
Sure.
A lot of that is your mid-range to short passing game. Get the ball, and especially with this line, get the ball out of his hands, get it into Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, Ridley, get it into their hands and let them make something happen with it.
What do you make of this? You know, we've talked about this. You know, it feels like there's kind of what happens in Titan land and then what happens and what people say outside of Titan land. And, you know, I've pushed back against things that I've heard people in the national media say, or people, you know, I've pushed back when I'm like, I don't think Diana Rossini spoke to an AFC South coach and reported over the weekend that the AFC South coach said it's only a matter of time until Mason Rudolph's the quarterback there. And Blake Bedingfield wrote at paulkarski.com that, you know, eventually the Titans, if Levis keeps turning it over, they're going to have to make a change at quarterback. And yet, I don't see any upside with Rudolph, like other than winning a couple of games here and there. And I don't see the Titans as valuing winning a couple of games here or there this season. I don't think a quarterback change is coming no matter what Levis does. I don't think a quarterback change is coming. Am I wrong for thinking that?
No. It's tough to imagine Levis continuing at this trajectory as far as turning the football over. But it's also tough for him to not be the best option to win. You got veterans, Jamal Adams, right? Calvin Ridley. You got veteran Tyler Boyd. You got guys in that locker room who are grinding every day. I mean, you can name all 53 of them, you know, grinding every day. It's tough to stand in front of them and tell them, I know this guy is not our best option to win games, but we're going with him anyway because of the future. Well, wait a minute. Jamal Adams is on a 1-year deal. Tyler Boyd's on a 1-year deal. His next deal could really have a lot dependent on how he does this year. You can't tell those guys that. So that's the balance that Callahan has to dance. You're not wrong at all in saying that there probably won't be a change, because this team, this organization, the franchise is committed to the future and figuring out the future. And you can't do that unless you get a read, right, wrong, or indifferent on Will Levis.
So Derek brings that up a lot, right? The idea of if Levis keeps turning the ball over and Brian Callahan keeps getting up there and saying, no, he's doing good things, that eventually the locker room's going to flip and say, okay, all right, forget the coach.
You got to be careful.
I don't know if that's how football players operate anymore. There's a part of me that thinks, especially on bad teams, there's a part of me that thinks some of these guys are like, I mean, I wouldn't play them, but, you know, that's coach's job, and I'm just here making $8 million doing my job.
They're going to say that. But you know what's going on in here?
Sure.
What
Derek thought about Mark Sanchez when he played with the Jets, which was like, he was like, I mean, this guy, he sucks. Like, that was how he felt.
Right.
But he wasn't going to go to the media and say that.
Right. But that doesn't mean that's not how they're feeling. And also, as you know, your feelings typically surface in your work. You know what I mean? So if you are feeling that way, it's just natural. You're not going to be the best player that you could be. It's just the way it is.
So I think I saw something. Willie said that the Vegas odds for the Titans win total go up if Mason Rudolph's the quarterback.
Wow.
Do you think the players, you're in that locker room, do you think the players on that team think that?
No. Because and I'm not talking about camera in the face, mic to the mouth. I'm just talking about just talking. They still believe in him. I mean, again, you saw the back and forth I had with Hopkins.
Sure.
And
he was almost offended at the idea that people think they'll make mistakes.
And I was like, oh, trust me, there's going to be chatter. And guess what? There is chatter, right? So these guys, they still believe in him. They still do.
TD is with us, 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, 615-737-1025. There's an empty feeling that I have that I don't like. And I am going to ask TD to help me with my feelings. And we'll do that next. Don't want to cut me.
seeing this team get their first win without you out there, seeing them break the 30-point streak without you out there. Human nature, I would imagine, is like press a little bit, but how do you process it? Like, how do you respond to that, and how do you plan to bounce back?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was ecstatic for us to get that win, but it's like no matter, or I guess if you have a certain sense of competitiveness in you, like you feel that like guiltiness. Like, why do I feel like I wasn't as much of a part of that win as I would have wished that I was. So it was tough dealing with that for like a day, but just flipping the page, getting ready, obviously with an injury to deal with now, just focusing on that. But being able to roll from that last win, and like Coach said, we're not relieved. We're not, all of a sudden since we have a good win, we're not going to take our foot off the pedal. Like we know what we got in front of us. It's a long road to go, and we just got to keep going.
That was Will Levis. TD, good question, by the way.
Thank you.
Asking the idea of like, hey, you really weren't part of the Miami win. Is it it's like Tom Brady being like, I was sad after we won the AFC title game the first time because I didn't do it. It's like, well, maybe be a little excited for the team. Bledsoe had to do that the whole year, but that's your business. TD, I'm searching for meaning in the rest of this Titans season.
Okay.
Right now, according to NFL.com, I think the Titans have like a 18% chance to make the playoffs. If they win, they get a 25% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose, it's 11, according to, again, NFL.com. Who knows how accurate those numbers are, but that's what they say. If they make the playoffs, I don't really have any faith that they would be able to do anything in the playoffs, and I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs. Personally, I kind of feel like the question about the quarterback's been answered, unfortunately, and I don't think that there's like a star quarterback in this year's draft that it's like, well, if you lose a bunch of games, it's okay because you're getting Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
So that just leads to me being sad. What should the meaning for the rest of this season be for me and sad Titan fans alike?
I think it's really the opportunity to define whether or not you have the guy on your roster, right? The first thing you have to do is recognize the problem before you can start working to solve it. And you're right. I mean, there isn't that guy that you say is a franchise changer, right? But there are some good quarterbacks. And you look, everybody thought Trevor Lawrence was a franchise changer, right? He was the guy that was Jacksonville was going. Last time I checked, Jacksonville got the same record as the Titans.
Mel's mock draft the day of the 2017 draft, I think, had Mahomes going at like 25.
So that being said, I mean, Jalen Milroe is a really good player, a prospect, right? Cam Ward is a prospect. Miss me with Carson Beck. I'm not listening to that. But, I mean, you look at some of these guys, Shedeur Sanders.
What do you think about the Deion-ness of Shedeur?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that you have to be able to absorb and work with. I think with Rand, I think that would be a buffer there because it's I think Rand would be able to handle that, and that relationship there would help. I know, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'm positive that would help. So I think if you look at that, right, you need to know, okay, is Levis the guy or not? And through 12 games, he's actually got the arrow pointing to he's not. But at the same time, a lot of guys have.
Sure.
So it's kind of why they're waiting on it. You know what I mean?
That's not really a positive thing to look forward to this year just to get jazzed up about the rest of the season. I mean,
you ever hear of Sister Soldier? She had a quote. She said, "If the truth hurts, you will be in pain." And in some cases, that's what hits with this Titans team.
I mean, the one thing I do recognize is that across the league, 2019, for instance, that team looked like it was going nowhere. When they, turned to Tannehill and all of a sudden they, went on to the AFC title game. So it happens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I watch these other teams play. Now, I think that Sunday should be competitive because Indy is awful. And
their defense.
And everybody's hurt.
Yeah.
Everybody on their team's hurt. But even then, it's like, okay, you beat the Colts. Big freaking deal. Like, they're terrible.
You can only play who's in front of you.
I know, but then it's like Buffalo, Detroit. It's like, oh, no. And it's like, and then I get mad. And I'm going to tell you why I get mad.
Uh-oh.
I get mad because 2 years ago, 7-5 and in first place wasn't good enough around here. And now here we are being like, oh, if you beat the Colts, is it a good thing? Because it will hurt your draft status. And none of us think that this team's going to the playoffs, but they're going to try to win these and then maybe 5 wins. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
do you see why I'm so sad?
Yeah, I mean, you are experiencing both ends of the spectrum. You got one side where things were good, and now things are bad, and they're very bad. But they can turn around because just as quickly as it swung from good to bad, it can swing back. There's talent on this roster, but it's just you have to get better play from your quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven league. That's what it is. And if Levis or Mason Rudolph or whoever's out there, if they don't play well, you don't really have a chance unless you're perfect on all other aspects. And we know special teams is a hiccup. Defense is solid. They can't get turnovers, and they struggle to get sacks. So, make of that what you want.
Do you think Brian Callahan thinks about it at all that if Mason Rudolph was the quarterback of this team, they're probably 3-1. They might be 4-0.
But that 3-1 and 4-0, it's good, but
So do you know what it would remind me of? Do you remember 2 years ago when Daniel Jones and the Giants came in here in week 1 and beat the Titans because Randy Bullock missed a field goal?
Yeah.
And I mean, the Titans did everything wrong in that game in the second half and deserved to lose.
Yeah.
And the Giants got off to a good start that year. And because of that, Saquon stayed healthy. They made the playoffs with Daniel Jones. And all of a sudden they decided, well, let's run it back because we got to the divisional round of the playoffs, which meant giving Daniel Jones a contract. And now, I think Dable and Shane are going to get fired when I think they got there thinking, hey, we're going to be terrible this year. Then we're going to blow it up and draft C.J. Stroud or draft Bryce Young and start over and get an opportunity. And instead, because Daniel Jones had that one good year, it actually probably set them back. And it probably is going to get these guys fired.
Yeah. It gave them a false sense of positivity, I guess you could say, like a false sense of
achievement.
There you go. It's crazy.
And is that the reason why, if you're Brian Callahan, you can rationalize being 1-3 as opposed to 3-1? Because even if you got there, what if this team Rudolph's the quarterback and this team makes the playoffs the same way the Steelers made the playoffs last year?
You're caught in
what's
no man's land.
What's the achievement?
You're in no man's land. And it's kind of where they had been, the last couple of years, where they were good enough to be, well, not really. 23, 22, we know what happened. So go back to 22. They were good enough to be in the mix for the playoffs. But really, if they get to the playoffs, they're just going to get stomped out, right? And then you don't have the opportunity to get a higher draft pick, so you're kind of in the middle. And it's no man's land, and you don't want to be there. You either want to know you have a quarterback or no, you don't, and work to go get one. But you don't want to be in a situation with Mason Rudolph or Ryan Tannehill or, a team is going to mess up and sign your guy, Darnold, next. They're going to sign him to a long
thinking that he's a franchise guy when really he's what Jared Goff is right now.
No, I wouldn't. Jared Goff is a good quarterback.
I think those guys that are not the force multipliers, they're are not the hey, get on my back guys kind of quarterbacks. I think they're all kind of the same. And so I look at Dak and I'm like, is Dak a get on my back guys quarterback, or is Dak kind of like a good quarterback who, if you didn't have a quarterback, Dak would be 100 times better than your quarterback, but you still can't win the Super Bowl with Dak kind of quarterback?
The Cowboys have an abundance of reasons. But, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think Dak is a difference maker at quarterback. We've seen it. You look at, the years where he's led them to 14-2 records. He was a big part of that, a big reason. So I just think you don't want to be caught up in a situation where you ask yourself, do I have that guy? You want to be like, man, I don't have that guy. We got to go find him. Or you want to be like, thank you, Jesus. We got that guy. And the Titans are not in either place, and that's the big problem. That's why we're talking so much about Mason Rudolph as compared to Will Levis or however it may be.
Let's get your phones in for TD, 615-737-1025. I will make sure to leave enough time at the end to hit them. But TD, I heard something yesterday the Titans are going to do that sent me through the roof. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 of the game.
We cut John Joku off the active. We will be signing him back to the practice squad. We'll elevate Leroy Watson to come get his competition at right tackle. He's going to get a chance to compete and just see what he's got. And I think that's the right move for our offensive line and for our team is to see what he has and what he can help us, where he can help us. And he's done a nice job. He's obviously familiar with the little bit of the system to some degree with the time in Cleveland, but yeah, it's just an opportunity for him, and we'll see what he does with it.
A split reps situation this week?
Yeah, as best we can. I mean, they'll both work, and we'll see where we end at the end of the week.
Leroy Watson is the latest guy. Come on down. You're the next contestant at Titans right tackle. So, TD, we start the year off thinking, you know what? They say, I'm like, they got to get a right tackle. They decide, you know what? We think we can do this with Nicholas Ferrer, a.k.a.
PT.
They think they can do this with PT and Jalen Duncan. And I thought, no, you can't. Trust me. I said, no, we think we can. Then they put a Joku in the mix. Then they realized PT was out the whole time, so they saw Duncan out there and they saw Joku out there, and they were like, let's see what happens when we get PT in there. PT had an okay preseason game against backups. They thought, you know what? He can do it. He can't do it. Then they said that they were going to have a competition between him and Duncan. Well, obviously, Duncan didn't win the competition because PT went back out there against the Dolphins. In fact, Duncan was inactive. So Joku was the backup, was the swing tackle. Now he's off the team, and Duncan's not even in the mix. And Leroy Watson, who they just called up off the practice squad, who they cut 6 weeks ago, is now in the mix at right tackle. TD, what? Bill Callahan, what are you doing? What's going on here?
Well, I tell you what, Leroy Watson, he has a cousin, from the What's Going Down episode of That's My Mama.
Mr. Randy Watson.
You know what he said? I believe the children are the future. No, all jokes aside, he is someone that, they brought in late, and he was in the mix and fell out of it, and now he's back in it. I think you look at Bill Callahan and his pedigree, what he's done, his history. I think he earned the benefit of the doubt. If he believed that he could make something happen with Nicholas Ferrer, I think that's one of those things where it's like, all right.
I agree with you, but I would expect it to work.
Not every process works, and clearly that one hasn't worked, and I don't know. Morgan Moses, again, like that's the one I continue to point to the second time, because they had two times where they could have acquired him and didn't, and that's been what it's been. So it's one of those things where it's like it's every week we're going to talk about this. Okay, what's the right tackle situation? Until they find a way to lock it down and seal it. And it's not like this organization hasn't attributed resources to it. A first-round pick in Isaiah Wilson, right? A second-round pick in Dylan Raynor, who's now your right guard. Like they've tried, but it just has a third-round pick who's now the guy that is in question at right tackle. So it hasn't worked.
So to that extent, when Bill Callahan got here, he said, hey, Radens is playing guard, and that's the end of it. And Brunskill, I don't even know why he's on the team. So
backup center.
He says, like, this is what's going to be. And again, at that point in time, Bill Callahan had the right to be able to say, I think Johnny can play, so Johnny plays. And it's like, well, Bill Callahan thinks it, so Bill Callahan. But I do feel like I'm kind of at the point with the Bill Callahan experiments where I'm like, Bill, I watched Dylan Radens play right tackle for the last 6 games last year. It was the best right tackling this team has had in 2 years. Instead of trying out these guys off the practice squad, maybe give Dylan a try over there. And it's like they have no interest in it.
But who plays right guard?
Brunskill.
See, you also have to remember this. It seems like they want power out of their guard positions, right? Brunskill is not a power guy. He doesn't. And I personally think that's why he fell out of the running for the right guard spot, because he's not a big brawn, like he's not a physical player that moves person from point A to point B. So I don't think he fits, and I think that's the issue, and I think that's why Raiders is there and not moving the right tackle. And also, I don't think they want to weaken too. That right side is already, take whatever bad adjective you want to put. I don't think they want to weaken it even further by, moving and shuffling and things like that. I think they're going to Petit Frere didn't have a bad game against the Dolphins. It was solid. And I know, Jalen Phillips went down. They're already without Chubb. But, he didn't have a bad game. So what happens this week against the Colts, right, with a banged-up Kwity Paye? Latu is going to go against Latham. That's a matchup that's kind of
Plus,
floating
Kwity
under the
Paye
radar.
kind of stinks.
He's not the best player, no. But this is a good opportunity to play yourself into position to where you're going against. No, seriously.
No, I thought you were about to say, but this is a good opportunity for Kwity Paye, to kind of get out there and get some sacks.
That too. If I'm Kwity Paye, I'm angling to play.
I'm like, Coach, I can play.
Yeah.
Kwity, your ankle is turned the wrong way. It doesn't matter.
It's all right.
Am I
We're
going
gonna
against
be
PT
good.
this week? I'm out there.
Let's do it. Yeah, no, of course.
I agree with you about it makes sense that, hey, if you think that Radens is a guard and you think Radens should play guard and you don't want to weaken two spots, but again, you can't get anything done with no right tackle. And they're more willing to try Duncan at right tackle than Radens. And I know I'm not Bill Callahan. I will never claim to be Bill Callahan. I have respect for Bill Callahan. I got it. I know Radens is a better right tackle than Duncan. I know it. There's no question. Put me on the witness stand, hand on the Bible. He's better.
Well, you saw how quick they pivoted from him, right?
I know.
He came in and gave up 2 sacks in like 12 snaps. Man, it's crazy. I'm exaggerating, but still.
615-737-1025. To me, that's an organizational failure across the board that they didn't address right tackle. And obviously, as you know, right tackle is important. 615-737-1025. We're hitting your phones for TD, and we're doing it next. Stillman and Company, live from Bridgestone Arena, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, we are live here at Bridgestone Arena. Barry Trotz in less than 15 minutes, but we got to get to the phones for TD on the TD Power Hour. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go to the phones?
One thought, real quick. My New York Mets, let's go.
You know what? As much as I don't like it, at the same time, I love to see the Phillies lose.
Me too. Frankie hit that home run. I went right online. I'm going game 3 on Wednesday. Got to do it.
At Citi Field?
At Citi Field. I wasn't going to miss it, man.
Okay. Good for you, TD. You know what's funny is a couple years ago, Braves went to the World Series, and the Titans played the Colts before game 3.
I remember this.
And I took off. And if Floyd hadn't passed away like 2 months before that happened, I probably would have been like, oh, I can't miss work on a Friday before the Colts game. And instead, I was like, screw it. My dad and I are going to the World Series because who knows how many, after that experience. One text says, TD, how much longer should we actually believe that Will Levis could have the potential to be a good quarterback?
I don't think there's really a time frame on it as much as there's what type of mistakes and what happens, right? I think that's the bigger thing. They're really, I couldn't put a time frame. Like, I can't say, hey, 4 weeks from now, you'll know. I think it's one of those things that you know when you know and you don't when you don't.
Do you lend any credence to this idea that, like, he could put it together?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, look at Sam Darnold, right? And I'm not saying he's playing brilliant football, outstanding MVP level, but, look at what he's been through. And look at Baker Mayfield. Look at Geno Smith.
Sure.
These are all recent examples of guys that didn't work out initially, but they played into being someone that an organization wanted to get married to,
Let's go to Mike in Gallatin, who's up next here. Our phone lines, by the way, are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, guys. So I understand game flow and certain things, but, man, when you invest millions of dollars like we have into Calvin Ridley, at some point we have to get him going. Is this game the right defensive matchup to get Calvin Ridley going? If not, when are we going to start to see it? Because I feel like that investment is starting to anger some fans.
Yeah, listen, I would say this. Fans, don't get angry, because I could tell you, like, within the locker room, within practice, just Ridley's presence there pushes others. And the way he attacks, it pushes other people in the building. You know what I mean? So you do have that. But he's right. You do have to find ways to get him the football. That's something that Brian Callahan said that they have to do better. But at the same time, when they call that, Levis, Rudolph, they have to do better getting him the ball. Ridley, he had an opportunity, and you had the ball go through his hands against the Jets. He made up for it later, but he also has to, when you're not getting a bunch of reps, when those reps come your way, you got to maximize. And I think, Ridley is just a matter of time till that hits.
I think with Calvin Ridley, like, it's going to be, there's going to be some games that are like, he hasn't had one yet, but like 8 for 113 and the score. And then there's going to be some games where it's 2 for 16.
Also, you got to factor in, right? Jalen Johnson, Sauce Gardner, Jair Alexander, Jalen Ramsey. If you say the top 5 corners, at least 3 of those guys are going to be in there.
Sure.
That's not happening this week, so that should help. And that's not to say that those guys traveled with Ridley, but still, like, they factored in. He had to go against them, and it makes it tougher. But I understand. You pay him the money, you want him to perform against them too.
Titans in Truth, Chris is up next on the program. Chris, go ahead. You're on with TD.
Hey, how's it going, gentlemen? I just had to chime in and hear y'all voices because y'all are my guys.
What's up?
Couple things. Jed, I'm with you completely. I'm like, why in the world don't they just start rating and say, right? I get the point. I get the point where TD is saying that he is absolutely right, because I defer to TD on a lot of things. But I'm like, Raiders is your right guard, could be your right tackle. Brunskill at right guard. Let's just see if that can work. And, I mean, we've seen it before, and I think it would be a better thing. I'm with y'all on Woodley and Hopkins, and I heard that from OC today. I'm like, yeah, get those guys going early and often, get them involved.
Yeah.
And I'm with that. But also, y'all know I work for a news station here, so quick, crazy nugget. We had in studio the new head coach of the Memphis Showboats, Ken Wisenhunt. And
oh, boy.
I tried not to have PTSD from 2014, 2015. I wanted to ask, Coach, why did you put Jeremiah Patasi on J.J. Watt and watch him kill Zach? I did a good job. I didn't do that because he shook my hand a couple of times, and he looked like, he looked like maybe, okay, rehabilitated, might do better. I have some hope for some stuff he said, dynamic offense and all, fine, good players. So I'm like,
Chris, he stinks, buddy. He stinks. Even at that level. Thank you, Chris. He stinks. One texter says, TD, why do the Titans keep trying and failing at processes that seem simple to common fans? PT, Burks, Weaver, all guys that people with no real football knowledge knew wouldn't work, but the Titans tried and failed, and that makes me more mad than anything else.
I mean, it's easy to stand here now and say, hey, Burks wouldn't work.
I didn't think Burks was going to stink.
Right.
I mean, I
there were
understood
very
it,
few people who thought he would stink. I mean, this dude dominated Alabama. And see, that's the thing. We have to be careful not to have that hindsight as 2020. Weaver, I mean, he was a 4th-round draft pick. It's not like they said, hey, he's going to come in and beat Derek Thomas. You know what I mean? So it hasn't worked out for different reasons. The caller's right. But to say that, everyone knew is wrong.
One texter says, TD, what do you think changes the Titans might make at the end of the year, big picture, if things continue to go down this road?
Yeah, I think the quarterback position may be an area they address. I think they're going to finally knuckle up and get you your right tackle. I would imagine they make a move on edge defender as well, and I think they're going to look at receiver, right? Luther Burden, Missouri, yeah. He's someone I think would be a good match because he gets those yards after the catch. You need that, but those are some of the things I would see him doing.
You don't think anyone's going to get hauled off and get fired?
Why? Like, who would you fire? I could understand if they made a move at special. And this isn't me advocating for Cole Anderson to get fired.
Sure.
If they did it, I'd be like, yeah, I get it.
I mean, the thing with Amy is it's like throwing the football in the air. Never know which way it's going to bounce. I mean, who knows? One texter texts into the text line and says, TD, do you think if the Callahan group knew earlier how much extra work Levis would need, that they would have tried to keep Ryan Tannehill to stay around for a year and put Levis behind him to learn?
No, I think they understood that it was a task, right? Not everything goes as smoothly as Joe Burrow's instant development, and sometimes it takes a little bit, right? You got to put it in the crock pot instead of the microwave, and that's what you have on your hands now. Now, whether or not that crock pot meal turns out good or not remains to be seen, so we'll see.
Another texter says, TD, what do you think the answer is around Titanland if they lose to the Colts on Sunday?
The answer around Titanland if they lose to the Colts on Sunday. Buckle up. It's going to be a long ride. And be ready for anything. I think that's really the way I would look at it. There's some things brewing in there that, can explode. There's players that, they need opportunities. There's players who, I'll put it that way.
TD, good to see you as always.
Oh, yeah, good to be seen. Appreciate it.
We are here at Bridgestone Arena. Barry Trotz joins us up next on the program as well. We begin our first of many interviews throughout the course of the year. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. It is 5 o'clock, not on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, but because it's the home opener, we decided let's start the weeklies with Barry Trotz right here on Thursday on opening night at Bridgestone Arena ahead of the Preds and Stars tonight. Barry, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by as always.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long summer. It's time to get back talking hockey, and nothing like a home opener.
Does it get you like inside? Like
Absolutely. It's exciting. I mean, the preseason keeps dragging on. It seems players are more prepared than they ever have been, and I think at some point that will probably get resolved with the next CBA, where we may shorten them. There's talk of adding games. There's different things, but I think the players, the top players, they don't need a lot of games. They need a couple games, and then your depth players or your next call-ups, if you could see them in a couple games, you should be good. I mean, we did it during the pandemic. I think the main thing, as long as everybody starts at the same starting point, then a couple games, and then you should be able to go. Because I thought the hockey that we had in the bubble and the hockey that we had when we had the shortened season, they were great, and they were 14-day training camps. You didn't have everybody. It was you had a couple scrimmages, and you had an exhibition game or two, and then that was it. You went right into it, and it was great hockey.
Barry Trotz, by the way, is presented by Pourvu. Be ready when the puck drops in Smashville with your drink of choice in hand. With 10,000 square feet of wine, spirits, and over 1,500 domestic import and craft beers with a massive array of ready-to-drink cocktails. So, start the year. High expectations around here with all the money that you spent with Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea coming into the mix. Dallas is a team that a lot of people are saying might win the Cup this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where are you in terms of, hey, the expectations are sky high, but at the same time, it is a long season of 82 games.
It sure is. And I think I've been transparent since I've taken this job, and I will continue to be that way. I looked at our team, and we needed a couple things. And I think I tried to address those. Number one was at free agency. We lost Ryan McDonough. I needed someone to replace Ryan McDonough, someone who we can have for a number of years, and someone who could give us a little more offense on the back end if Roman Josi goes down. We didn't have a backup plan if Roman went down, and I think Brady Shea fills both those. He's a veteran guy. He's a winner. And he can play in all situations. So that was my number one priority. And then I looked at where we were. Our 5-on-5 game was really good in the playoffs, but we didn't have those difference makers in the playoffs. There's not much room. Those special teams hurt us on 2 games. And so I wanted to give us some people that could help us on the special teams, give us those difference makers in the playoffs if we can get to the playoffs, that can score when they get that one opportunity. We have some really good players, but they need 3 or 4 chances to score. Some of these guys can score with the one chance that you get in the playoffs. So I went out and tried to address that and buy some time for our young guys to continue to mature, continue to fill our pipeline. So that was the mandate. And then for me, someone asked me about expectations. My expectations, I said, before the season, July 1, it's fantasy hockey. We added some great pieces, but now we've got to become a good team. And it's just like last year. I said, we're going to see. I don't know what we have yet. I still don't. But I wanted to put us in a position with the additions that if things fall into place, and you hope they do, but sometimes they don't, that we can make the playoffs, to win a round and be a threat. Be a threat in this league. And there's so many good teams. I look at it, and especially the West, there's 11 teams I think that are really, really strong, and hopefully we're one of them. And if we get in the playoffs, I think we'll be more of a threat.
When it comes to what you've seen so far, I remember last year guys were not playing to the expectation level early that we had expected them to play. And there was kind of a thought, at least that a lot of people had, which was, hey, it's taking some time to learn the new system, to develop it. Bruno wants them to play a certain way compared to how John Hines wanted them to play. Have you seen some of that with Marcia Show,
Oh, yeah.
Stamkos, and Brady Shea, or is it kind of seamless?
No, it's not seamless. I can tell you, every year you're starting over again to a certain extent. You take one or two players out of your lineup, and everybody's, as we say, their cheese gets moved a little bit. Where do I fit in, and where's my spot? I watch our power play. We got a lot of good pieces on that power play that they've got. But it's hard to do that in practice because you don't want to get friendly fire on some of your penalty killers. So sometimes they divert to not shoot. But we've got to get that shot mentality and not always try to defer to Stamkos or Marchessault or whoever. We need to just become a 5-man unit, and whoever has the opportunity, whoever has the best look, take your look, and let's be creative off the retrievals and all that. So. It'll take some time. I mean, you think about Steven Stamkos, he's played a certain way in Tampa for 16 years, and now we're trying to get him to play a different way, a different style. Same with Marchessault. So all those guys, it'll take some time. And last year, we didn't have any expectations last year, and we were not a very good team out of the blocks. Then we became a pretty good team, and then we were just an average team, and then we became an awful team for 3 or 4 games, and after the All-Star break, and then we became a really good team. So it's a long season, and I don't have the timeline. I wish we could be great from start to finish, but I feel that the teams that win are the ones that keep building, from opening night till the end. And so tonight will be a great test. Dallas Stars are a good hockey team. They're deep. They're one of the favorites in the National Hockey League, and I don't think we didn't have a great training camp. We didn't play against really full lineups, and you're finding that a lot of the top players, it's very similar to football. They're just trying to get to the start line without getting nicked up, and so they don't have a lot of substance to our game. I mean, our game is about being heavy. Our game is about relentless. That. Oh yeah, I do not like the preseason. I think we saw the last game against Carolina. I was looking at the hits. They were like, after 2 periods, it was like 7-3, so it was a non-hitter, and that's not us. We have to be in your face. We have to be a little bit relentless. We have to be on the puck. We weren't that, because part of that is the physicality, and we didn't do that a lot. And I think just some of the lineups were a little bit iffy. So are we ready? I don't know. But I do know we've got some great people who are veteran guys who have the ability to turn it up. I've seen that with the Tampa team, as Stammer would say. He's worked a lot harder at our camp than he's ever worked in Tampa. And because we believe in being relentless, and there's a certain mentality they have to go into every night, and so he's learning on the fly, and hopefully he'll be a real great ad, because he's a terrific player, and he's a terrific person, and he should fit in just seamlessly with us. But give him some time on the ice, because that's where the difference will be made.
Barry Trotz is with us, presented by Porvu. What's wrong with UC Saros?
Just little nicks here and there, so he's a game time decision.
Okay. So I think you're going to be happy with the fact that I think I asked you about the goalie situation every single time we talked last year, which might have been like 20 times.
Yeah.
And then in the offseason, I asked you about the goalie situation, and then I asked about it some more. Well, now I'm never going to have to ask you about who the goalie of this team is. That's
not for 8 years.
There is a dichotomy between how the fans feel, I think, and how the team feels about the goalie. And what I mean by that is, I think with the fans, there is a question mark about, hey, Saros is good, but he hasn't won a playoff series.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, this team, the fan base is used to Pekka Rinne, who would, go back to that Anaheim series in 2011, steal series. And Saros hasn't done that yet. And yet it feels like the team, from you to the coach to the players to even Willie and Chris Mason, it's like, how would you dare not think that UC Saros was that good? He's every bit as good as Pekka Rinne. That is again, I feel like the dichotomy in thought. Well,
Yeah.
it feels to me like you've kind of put your chips in the Saros basket here, believing that hey, he is the guy. So I asked this question, which is, what makes you so certain of that? Because again, like 6 games against Vancouver and out.
Yep. No, I think you have to trust the years of experience that you have. You have to trust that you know the player. One thing I do know, I've had great goaltending everywhere I've gone, and it goes hand in hand with your system a little bit. But I've also had a year or two where I had no goaltending, and you cannot win in this league. You can't make the playoffs in this league if you don't have goaltending. You ask Jersey last year, if you talk to Tommy Fitzgerald, Tommy said, I had a good team. He had a really good team.
Sure.
Yeah, he didn't have a goaltender in it, and what it does is it takes away your swagger. If you don't have it, takes away your trust, and it affects your game. If you're looking back and you're like, how did that go in? Those are things that we know for a fact that the Juice can do that. Yeah, and you asked the right question. Juice hasn't won a playoff series, but if we surround him with a good team, with competitive, and we play the way we need to play in the playoffs, he can be a difference maker, because we see it in the regular season, and you'll see it in the playoffs. And I think, as much as Juice never said much about it, all the questions, all the things that in the back of his mind, they affected him. He didn't say it because he's a true pro. And I think he's adjusting his game. That's one of the reasons I brought Mitch Korn in. As the game keeps evolving, the goaltenders have to keep evolving. And I think Juice feels really comfortable with what they want him to do this year. And I'm very confident that you need a goaltender to make the playoffs. And I've got to put a good enough team around Juice so that we can win some series. So that was the thought process. And with that, when you have a good goaltender, everybody says you don't need you don't need a great goaltender until you don't have it, and then it's a different story. So you can ask a lot of GMs. If they said one position where you want to be consistent, you don't have to be outstanding, but if you can be consistent, that's the one area on every club that every general manager in this league would say, if I can be consistent in goal, we have a chance.
I have a theory, and so I'm just going to ask you straight up.
All right.
We just saw what Jeremy Swayman signed for, 8.25.
Yeah.
And I would say that, I think Saros is probably better than Swayman. That's just me. You think whatever you want. I think that there's a reason why you waited until when you traded Askarov. Now, I think you were going to keep him and try to develop him and then eventually trade him, but that was going to happen. I believe that his presence on the team, that he was always going to be on this team until the Saros contract got signed.
Yeah, correct.
And so I knew it when people were like, well, why didn't they trade him at the draft? Why didn't they try? I'm like, because at that point now Saros says, okay, well, I want $8.5 million, because he knows there's not an alternative if you trade him before you sign the deal.
Yeah. And I will say this, and with full disclosure, I was very close to getting Saros signed around the draft. We had talked in concept, and I thought we were really, really close. And if the right deal would have been there, I probably could have pulled that off. But the right deal wasn't there, so we didn't. But yes, the whole thought process was, yes, Ashcroft would be here, and we would develop him and then turn him into an asset and make our decision. So,
but you made a decision at some point between last year, before the trade deadline, when you were kind of entertaining all the options.
Correct.
And the end of this past season where you knew that Saros was the guy, period, no matter. No question.
Yeah, that's correct.
What's up with Spencer Stastny? I was really, really excited about the way that he played at the end of last year and into the playoffs, to get him probably on a third pair and then let him develop a little bit, see if he could be a top 4 D-man. And all of a sudden, I don't know where he is. What happened with Stastny? Do we have an update? Where is?
No, we don't. We don't have really an update. He's just dealing with some personal things, and so he's a non-rostered player right now.
So does that mean that you get the money back on the cap, or you're still paying the money on the cap, or how's that work?
The league looks at every situation individually. So it's still being worked out between us and the league.
But everything's good in theory between you and Stas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We support Stash. He's just he's dealing with some personal things.
Okay. Then when I saw that he wasn't in there, I kind of got excited about the idea of Tanner Mullendijk being on the opening day roster when I saw how much he was playing. And then I really got excited when I saw him and Yossi paired together in a preseason game. But he ends up not making the team. You're going to go with the Fabros and Luke Shins and the guys that have been here with NHL experience. How close was Mullendijk to making the team?
He was very close. He made it very difficult. One of the things I walk through with the coaches, I think the coaches, you know, the thing that being a coach, you're in the present. You're always in the present. You're always in the present. And, you know, there's no Stashny at camp. Mullendijk had a fantastic camp. You could see he's going to be a terrific player for us. And one of the things that we had to deal with was, you know, long term, where, you know, what's the usage? Is he's a power play guy. He plays a lot. He's great. He's an elite skater. He plays power play, penalty kill in junior. He does all that. All of a sudden, I'm looking at a roster and I'm looking at usage, and I can't predict who's going to be hurt. I can't predict who's going to be healthy. So if we were healthy, I was saying, who's the first on the power play? Well, it's Roman Yossi's, you know, the D, and we're usually going 4 forwards. The second group was Brady Shea. That's why we brought him in. Tanner Mullendijk's a power play guy. There's no power play time if they stay healthy, and everybody was fine. And last year we were healthy, and it was hard to get guys in. You know, penalty kill. You know, you got Luke Shin, you got Fabro, that's what Shea does. You know, that's what Lazan and Carrier do. All of a sudden, you know, that might not be there. So special teams, you know, during the year, there's usually 4 to 5 penalties for each team. All of a sudden, there's less minutes. You know, the game gets shortened because you're up a goal or down a goal.
Sure.
So you know, he could have developed and he could have been contributed, but he might not be in another. He might be in another lineup. And so, long term, I know that he's going to be. He made Team Canada last year. Got hurt in the last preseason game, or the exhibition game for the World Juniors. I know he's going to be on that team this year. I know he's going to have a great experience. I know he's going to play a lot of minutes, and I know that he's going to be a long-term Predator.
If this were last year, where, as you said, you had no expectations going into the season, it was let it ride, see what happens. Would he have made last year's team if he was where he was this year? But given the additions that you've made, given kind of where the team is, did that change at all?
Well, I think fantasy hockey, if we could, you know, go through a time warp and all that, where he's, you know, the extra year of him growing just as a person has really shown. And I think, you know, another year, like, he's not a big guy. In giving him the extra year to physically mature, keep continuing to grow his game. Yeah, where he was right now, last year he probably would have made our team. That's how good a camp he had. But we're in a little bit different place, and you know, from a team standpoint, a cap standpoint, all those things play into it, and then usage standpoint. You know, that was really important to us, that he continues to play and continues to grow. But I have no worries as a general manager that Tanner Mullendijk's going to regress or not be able to be the player that I think he can. I think for me, he is a solid Pred for a long time.
So we saw the final roster that Tomasino made the team and Parson made the team, and those guys made it. Where do you kind of feel as far as those guys are? You know, we saw last year, for instance, Cody Glass was a guy who was given an opportunity and it didn't work out. When it comes to where you are with these guys and the chances that you've given them before and that you're giving them right now, where do you think they kind of are in terms of, you know, kind of put up or shut up time here?
Well, I think they're exactly that. They've got to carve out a career, or they.
And do you feel like that they've kind of taken, you know, because they got sent down last year, do you think they've kind of taken that in a positive fashion for this year?
I think they have. I think that you know, they both went down, and I think they saw how hard it was, and based on just playoffs last year, I would say Zach Leroux was the best player in the playoffs. But they play a little different, say, role in our team. Zach is right now he's a in your face. Probably if he's on our team, he'd probably play with McCarron and Smith type of guy. Where Tomasino and those guys are on the power play. Zach wouldn't be on the power play. He might kill penalties. They play different roles. So guys like Zach and Sissons, he's within those guys for the roles and ice time. And I expect Zach to be here. I expect guys Ozzy Weisblatt, who's in that sort of role, to maybe see some of that. And then
You really like that Weisblatt, don't you?
I really do. I like what he brings to the group. He's a little different element. He's a little smaller, but he's got lots of quickness, got lots of game. He's very competitive. So yeah, I do. And then in the rookie tournament, I saw Reed Schaefer take a big step in the playoffs, and then in the rookie tournament, I'm really excited about seeing him in the going forward. And we didn't get to see Svechkov, where I think center ice is an area I'm always going to be looking at, trying to build that for now and for the future. So, but he got hurt right before the camp or the tournament, rookie tournament, and then he got hurt again in camp. So we didn't get to see the best of Svech, but he really looked good in the playoffs last year for us.
Last one for you, Barry Trotz, with us, presented by Porvu. Do you have any word back from the league on the Johansson money? I'm not one to count other people's money, but I am counting yours. So are you getting the $4 million back, or what's going on here?
Absolutely no idea. That's going to go into to the league and between the two parties, and they have a grievance out right now. And basically, I'm going to act as if everything's in escrow. I'm not going to touch it. And if we get a good result from that, then that would be a bonus. But we can't pretend like we have it until we know we have it. So there's no timeline for that. But I would anticipate, knowing the league and that it's going to happen before the trade deadline.
That's all I care about.
so just to get some clarity. So I think just like anything, we'd like to get free of that one way or the other. So, and I think so would Philadelphia.
Barry Trotz, as always, joining us on the program. Good to see you. Good luck tonight, and we'll see you Tuesday.
All right, sounds good.
Barry Trotz on our program. And if you thought that was bad, it's getting worse, because Sean Henry's in the house, team president, CEO, will join us coming up next here, opening night, live from Bridgestone Arena, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live at Bridgestone Arena ahead of tonight's season opener for the Nashville Predators, and we are joined now by the CEO of the Predators. I keep saying president, CEO. You're not that anymore.
Now
You're just CEO. You got demoted.
I got half my title stripped away. Michelle Kennedy is coming on strong, and probably one of the best days of my life is when we did promote her. So well deserved, and now I get to do a lot of nothing. It's really wonderful.
Isn't that kind of what you were doing before?
Well, I used to do a little bit of nothing. Now I do a whole lot of nothing.
Sean Henry's with us on the program. So I got to tell you, expectations. This is what I said at the start of the show. I think this is a team that can compete for the Stanley Cup. But to me, I think it's crazy to have an expectation of, this year I want to, or my expectation is to win the cup, because it's so hard to do. My expectation is the second round of the playoffs, because I feel like once you're in the second round of the playoffs, you're a razor thin margin away from winning the cup. And the difference between a team that gets knocked out in early May and a team that ends up winning the cup, it's not as big as you think. That's how I feel about this year's team after the money that was spent in free agency, after the way they performed at the end of last year. I think the coach is the right guy for the job. When you guys hear people like me start talking about that in October, is it exciting or does it make you a little queasy?
Oh, it doesn't make me queasy at all. And I'm sure Barry said this before me. Our job is to build the team to compete at the highest level. And that's kind of the same thing that you're saying. You build it to make sure you're not just getting in the playoffs. You're building it where you can compete deeply in the playoffs. But like you said, it's like Barry said, you got to get in the playoffs this year. You got to win the first round. And then the second round, it's almost like a whole nother series.
Yeah.
Your tournament starts again. And it's true. I mean, the year we lost to Winnipeg, obviously I'm a little partial, but that was probably the best series in that whole playoff run. It was two of the three best teams playing. So you just never know, what's going to happen. But I love when our fans believe that this team can win the Stanley Cup, because that's what you want. In the summer, when you build something or you're building off of last year's success or failures, you want to make sure people are saying, you know what, they did it right. They came back strong. Look at what they did, whatever those moves may be. This year, they're a little bit more exciting than in years past, but you want people to be excited. And years ago, when I got here, we put up, the signs all over the wall, right? One goal, be the best venue in the world, built around Stanley Cup championship team. People were like, how dare you put that up there? I was like, well, what do you want our goal to be? You want us to be good? Or do you want to strive for, the ultimate success?
So, our goal is to host one round of the playoffs so we get paid for it. And then anything else after that's gravy. Now, I do think about it like this, which is it felt like when Barry Trotz came aboard, that where this organization was headed, it felt like there was a chance that, it may take a while in order to get things to where we're having the conversations we're having right now. Are you surprised by the speed with which it feels like in a year it's gone from, hey, let's see where this thing goes, to, hey, let's see if this team can go win the cup?
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm surprised. What I'm pleasantly surprised about is how fast our fans rallied around this team after that trade deadline. So let's face it, we moved away, some fan favorites. We missed the playoffs, but it was fun. Like, he didn't know it was going to happen.
I think the fans were excited about the moving away, though.
You're right. And it was like, here we go. There's a lot of fun hockey. We almost got in the playoffs despite, where we were. And then you add a couple of real key leaders, that summer. But it wasn't as exciting this summer to our fans. But we knew we were building something pretty special, bringing guys like that in, as Barry always says, serial winners. And, last year, it was a fun year of hockey, too. And we got in the playoffs, and I think it just ignited something a little different in some of the players that we had, and playing maybe a little different style, if you will, the way they stick up for each other, with each other. Every single person on the roster can do anything. That's how they really, really think. And then this year, when you add those pieces, my gosh, it's fun. So I'm not surprised where we are. I am a little bit more surprised by how fast people embrace what we're doing. And that is a lot of confidence in Barry. It was just wonderful.
Where are we on the ownership front? I see the money getting spent, so I know someone must be writing the checks. But we know about the transition with Herb Fritsch and with Governor Haslam. And I knew that it was a couple-year process. So how involved is Herb and is Governor Haslam, and how has that worked as far as making sure that Barry and the team has what they need to be successful?
So when Barry was a coach, I love the line that he said once when our group bought the team, really saved the team. They're all day one season ticket holders. And he said, Tom Segrin has removed the word no from our vocabulary. Everything was possible. And that's when we stopped trading players away right before they became free agents. And we're signing players and started building something really special. And the plan was always to go from Tom to Herb, who was our majority owner. But when they all bought it, Herb was still very active in his company. Tom reset so much of who we were, what we were.
That's a good man.
Yep. And I was so fortunate to work for him. And then Herb transitioned to him. And he really took that and then stabilized it a little bit. And then the plan was a 3-year window of purchase from Herb to Bill, where this past July, Bill became the chairman. Next year, he becomes the majority, over 50% owner. But, the ownership group's wonderful. They really are. Tom, will give you goals and steer you in a certain way and challenge you in a wonderful way too. Herb was very similar, slightly different styles. But, David, Poyle, and myself, we would talk to Tom or Herb, once a week or so. Something big has happened, we pointed out. We'd have a monthly meeting or every other month. They got a little bit less frequent as things got better and better and better and better. And Bill is a lot like those guys in that style. Probably a little bit more involved. It's exciting and he's new. Like he always says, every day he was ramping up. But I talk to Bill probably every other day. I think Barry does about the same thing. The three of us, we don't have any meeting schedule. Barry and I have no set meetings, but we probably meet 6 times a day or talk at least 6 times a day. And Bill's similar to that. I'll call him in the middle of the day real fast, 20-minute or the 20-second conversation. And then we'll probably meet for lunch or breakfast or something every other week or so. Next week we actually have an owners meeting where they all come in. We do 4 of those a year or so. But it's a good group. They're very supportive. They will share some observations, which is always good because they're all very smart, successful business people and are passionate about hockey and passionate about Nashville. But I will tell you this, never, ever have anything that we've done have they questioned and chastised. They've questioned like, hey, what were you thinking with that goofy idea? Or why are we doing that? Where we're going? But the whole goal is, there's almost like guardrails with them. But the most important thing they all provide, this is where we should be going. What do we need to provide you guys to get there? And that is a wonderful group to work for. I've been very fortunate in my life. Really only worked for 2 owners in reality. One provided every resource you needed, and all you wanted to do was be the best venue in the world, build around championship teams, and we were. We won 3 championships with the Pistons, 1 with the Lightning, and then here's kind of the same guidance. Let's be the best building. Let's have this team be one of the elite teams in the league on every single front. That doesn't happen overnight, but over the past 10, 15 years, we're certainly building there, and I think we're really close. And, Barry and I have a goal to reset what teams are the leaders in this league. And when we like to think it's kind of the Southern 6 or Southern 7 now. You have Florida, you have Tampa, you have us, you have Vegas, you have Dallas, a few others too. But we think the future of this league is going to be built around teams that are building it in similar way that we are.
So to that point, Sean Henry's with us on the program. How involved is Governor Haslam in terms of the actual hockey? Like how much does he know? How much is he learning, on a daily basis, talking through decisions with Barry? I assume, I always talk about this in football. Like if I owned a football team or if I owned a hockey team, you came to me and you said, I want to sign UC Saros to a 8-year contract at $7 million per. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I hired you to do the job, to sign the guys and how much money. But you got to talk to me before you do it. And we got to go through it. How involved is Governor Haslam at that kind of extent?
Well, first you got to go backwards a little bit. First, Governor Haslam's an incredible businessman. He's an incredible leader. And he's a passionate sports fan. Like he's the same as me and you. When he was 12 years old, he knew the roster of every single team, in every single league. So he comes to it in the same manner you do, or I do, or Barry does. So he's really involved. Right after we get done with the playoffs, we sit down, Barry, myself, was Herb and Bill now, Bill, and Barry lays out, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is where I'm going. Now, it's not specific names because you don't know what's going to happen. But here's plan A minus, B plus, and if this happens, then this happens. And when you work with Barry and our 3 assistant general managers and our scouts, they can walk you through everything that we're going to do and why we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it. And by the way, if this changes, well, then this is the new play sheet, if you will. So it really is Barry's saying this is what we're doing. And the challenge isn't, wait a minute, what about this guy instead of that guy? Not at all. I mean, not ever. Question might be why that guy instead of that person, which is a good leader because it makes you articulate your plan a little bit more. And every once in a while, you'll catch yourself and say, you know what, we might have to revisit that. So he's just wonderful. And he's really, really involved. You're right. We spent $15 million in the building this year, and you lay out the plan. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is where we're going. And he'll challenge you with, hey, what about this, or I saw this in another building. And that's what you want. It's almost like having a dynamic collaborator with you that also lays out the vision. And what I love about Bill, every conversation we have, if it's about the roster, in this case, this is great. Where does that put us in 2 years too? Where does it put us in 2 years after that? And that's what you want. A lot of owners want to know about tonight's game or this month or this season. And sometimes that's at the detriment of tomorrow. Barry's job is to build something really incredible today and tomorrow. And I think that's the path we're on right now. And you look at our future draft picks, how many we have, where they are. Look at our depth in Milwaukee. I know you hate Milwaukee, but depth in Milwaukee is very important.
Do that on your own time. The Admirals talk. Sean Henry's with us. Do you think, the Bally Sports stuff, I read all the I'm obsessed with the TV stuff, like just in general, like who's calling the games, what networks are buying what's it. It's a weird kind of, I don't know, obsession of mine. But the Bally Sports stuff, I don't understand how the regional networks are signing deals with the NBA and the NHL to broadcast throughout the course of the season with there being no plan for the future for Bally Sports after that, and then kind of blowing up their baseball operation, or it looks like they're kind of doing that. And yet at the same time, from what I've been told, it sounds like the one that you guys are on, the individual Bally Sports channel, is the most profitable one of the groups. So where does that put you guys in all of this?
Well, it puts on the same station we've been on for 26 years. That's comforting and good. The negative is they're at a third or a quarter of their subscribers where they were because of the cable cutters. And then, they're not as populated on certain streaming that we want to see them on, and our fans want to see them on. And obviously, we know exactly where we are and what we're, I don't say what we're doing because I don't know what the future always is. They just kind of took their first step climbing out of bankruptcy or reorganization plan. I don't think that's officially done until the first quarter or so. We have 3 years left with them. They have a lot of work to do, to get back to maybe where they were 10 or 15 years ago when it was just easy to find them. Their streaming service has had some challenges up and down. There have been rumors of Amazon coming in.
I was
going to
say, is there anything with Prime Video? Because we hear that, and then we don't hear it, and then we hear they're out, and then we hear they're in.
I sure hope so, for a lot of reasons. We all know how to use Amazon Prime, period. Right? It's I don't know if it's the number one stream service in the world, but I think it's maybe more bigger than the next three combined. So that's good. The second is that they're looking at it. Having a company like Amazon and Apple's making their noise too, getting into this space is nothing but good. I mean, it really isn't. If that means they partner, with Diamond and make everything a little bit bigger and better, we're going to be the winners in that, and our fans are the winners in that. But beyond that, there are things that need to be worked through. There's no doubt about it. The market president for our partnership, the Southeast anyway, us, the Braves, Memphis, they're very realistic of this was our online product. I mean, our streaming product. Here were some of the challenges last year with it. This is where the improvements are coming from. They're having conversations with other companies. I hear, again, I don't run them. I don't work with them. But they're conscious of where they are, what needs to get better, what do they need to do. We're also aware of the fact that our fans are spending more money now to watch it on Bally's or even through their app. And I think we're going to be rolling out a program next week. We're going to reward our fans that are subscribing to Bally's. So it's ideally some of those costs that you're taking on.
Breaking news, folks.
We're going to reward you for it. You should have Bill Wickett on it. We're just waiting for him to, finish off that.
You should ask Bill Wickett how often I text him and call him about Bally's.
Oh, he tells me. Believe it or not.
I mean, I am obsessed with all of this stuff here. Sean Henry's with us.
I'm glad you are, though. I really mean it because it's important to our fans. It's important to us. And it's not even about money. I mean, it's just not. Having our fans easily to find our games is important. The one thing I recoil at is when people say our games are blacked out. Our games are not blacked out. They're literally in the same place they've been since 1998. The only difference is all of our games are broadcast now, as opposed to I think 45 or 50 that first year. People are choosing to cut their cord and use certain streaming services. I think it's available on one more streaming service this year. I know there's going to be one more added, I believe. Or you could, go through the app, which has not been the best experience in years past.
Sure.
And we've challenged them on that, guaranteeing it's going to be better this year. But you are going to spend a little bit more money to watch it, and that's not lost on us. So we want to make sure we minimize that and reward the fans that are doing that.
Last one for you. We saw, the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. I think, the ratings, if they had not, I don't understand why ESPN and ABC let this happen. If they didn't have baseball, the championship on at the exact same time as Game 7, I think they both would have gotten higher ratings. They both got great ratings for the final. Is the league excited about where the game is right now? Like, is the league seeing, hey, we could be better, or are they saying, hey, this is what we thought when we signed the deals with ESPN and TNT? Where is the league as far as the game is concerned, especially the growth in places like here and Vegas and Dallas and across America?
What I love about our league, and what I like about our board of governor meetings, we have 4 of those a year. We were just in one last week or 2 weeks ago, and then we have presidents meetings, maybe misnamed because I still go, but and we do 4 of those a year, and then I have 4 calls a year. It's always about how do we make the game better on the ice, off the ice, make it more appealing, make it, find it, and where are we going? How do we grow it? Fact is, where we are today versus where we were 5 years ago or 5 years before that, we're light years ahead of it. And part of it is Florida, Tampa, us, Vegas, Dallas. You start going through it. It's all those newer markets that maybe were a little challenged not that long ago, but now we're becoming some of the strongest markets in the league with really strong markets as well. So, no, the game's in great shape. It's getting better all the time. What I love about the Board of Governors meeting is we started off with where are we in the game? We talk ratings, we talk, fan satisfactions and surveys with everything about the game, from how you walk in the door to what you're seeing on the ice. And it's a pretty comprehensive review, and it's honest. And that's what's important. We pull our head out of the sand and say, look, we need to be better here, 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 and here. And this is great. How does we make it better? And this is god awful. We should just either stop or figure out what we're trying to do and redo it again. It's a fun group to be with.
Sean Henry, thanks for stopping by.
Well, thanks for cutting me. I guess. How do you have the 2 longest winning guys in the world back to back between me and Barry, hosted by you? And that's a lot of wind being blown with the 3 of us.
It's actually rather nice. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
Thank you.
Stillman and Company, let's go ahead and tell you that we will be giving something away at the end of this segment, but it is time now for Predators Game Day, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with the experts at TJ Anderson Homes. By the way, TJ's my realtor, takes great care, and he will take great care of you. Tonight, we went really long with Barry Trotz and Sean Henry, so it's the opener. The Predators, O and O. The Stars, O and O. That's right. It's the opener. We're very excited. My final thought, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Let's enjoy the game. ESPN Plus for the broadcast. Max is next to the pregame show. And be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. And you'll be going to Tuesday night's game right here at Bridgestone Arena against the Kraken. That's it for us. Max got you next. 1025, 106 through the game.